Good morning. All right, I'm going to have to turn that down a little bit. In case we haven't met, my name is Doug, and this is Doppler'S Gear Garage, and it's Saturday, and I'm glad that you're here. So we are getting ready to close out 2024. What a year it has been. I hope, first of all, you're having a great day. I hope you had a great year, and more importantly, that your 2025 is going to be awesome. Got a couple of routines that we'd like to do here. We do a couple of things here. So first of all, let me just say hello to everybody that has already arrived. Eric, good morning. Great to see you. Hello, hello, hello. Albert! Good morning. Bet, Tom, hello, hello. Who knows? All right, well, great. Well, first of all, welcome, welcome, welcome. Have we got a show for you? So one of the things is I kind of think about the end of the year and kind of wrapping things up. I also like to think about kind of starting things out for 2025. You know, what is setting goals, kind of looking back on kind of maybe some of the things that you wanted to achieve in 2024 and didn't, or maybe some of the things as you kind of got to the end of 2024 and went kind of like, oh, you know what? Come to think of it, I want to get this done. So, first of all, William, good morning. Hello, hello. Thank you so much. My V loves you as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Chris Alexander. When am I getting the new friends? So, I drop this puppy off tomorrow night with my dear friend Gary Brower, and it desperately needs them. The crazy thing is that I look at this and it looks like a worn battleship. It's just kind of like there's holes and level spots. It's kind of amazing. Spencer, good morning. This week I am doing this but I'm taking 2 weeks off to finish the said vocal and instrumental albums. But I'm kind of I am here. So hello. So like it or not. So great to see you. So as we're collecting these things, normally I do things in a set order. So I tell you, let's first of all take care of the important part, and let's raise them up. Because this is an important part of the show. We got to talk about, how we're starting the day. I mean, this is an integral part of this. So I am holding the wife's, she works for a company called BizWorld, and they are an entrepreneurial organization for young adults. It's really cool. So she contributes in a great way and also makes it very possible for me to do all the things I do. So I've got, now, Griffin, if you're watching, this is the new coffee I know for a fact you sent me for Christmas. Thank you very much. I opened up a bag of what I think is another thing that you sent, which is New Orleans Best. In any case, I am enjoying my beverage. Let me know where it is you're coming from and what it is you're drinking as we raise them up. Oh, was that tasty. Okay, so first of all, one of the things that I'm really aware of as the longer I play is kind of, good days and bad days. The idea of kind of opening up. Are my hands going to be with me? As I kind of step into, I'm still a little hot here probably. As I step into kind of whatever it is that I'm trying to step into for the day. I try not to be the exact same guitar player from day to day. There's an element of consistency. We don't want to just play the same crap day in, day out. We want to take the same old crap that we play day in and a day out and have that get better, but we want to find new crap to play. So part of what I want to talk about today is crap. But, how we take our crap and we make it better. There we go. That's it. So Albert and I have become, how do I, there's the expression bosom buddies. We're boogie buddies. We met on the Boogie Forum. We attended the Al Di Meola show together, and we're just kind of busy doing life, kind of side by side. It's been a really groovy thing. It's one of the things that I love about what I affectionately refer to and I learned a new word, Christmas Day Eve, that there is, in fact, a word called sisterant. Because when I think of the Boogie Brethren, I realize, that could be a little exclusive and non-inclusive to the sisterant. So we were kind of hanging out with some folks around Christmas Day dinner, Christmas dinner, I guess you would call it. But sisterant is a thing. So to all the Boogie Brethren and sisterant, it's a thing. So personal note, my band is on hold. My playing declines while I'm not challenged by new material. So, so that is a kind of a personal thing for all of us, and so what ends up happening is the way that I there we go. Imagine that. So part of my gig when I'm demoing gear is that I have to be, give or so, 5 to 8 different guitar players. So I kind of have to find me as as a number of different of the expressions of the things that I've studied. It means that I pick up a different guitar, I have a different vibe, I have to play with a certain level of efficiency in terms of tempo, groove, vibe, dynamics, chords, vocabulary, all that stuff. So it's actually when I fall into an amp, kind of like the rest of my world ceases, including my practice world. So it's really exciting for me to kind of be jumping back into practice mode. And the other thing is there we go. Mike Rand, good morning. I just felt like doing that. I'm not going to give everybody a salutation. Please don't have any hurt feelings. Because I love you one and all. So here's the deal. So there are a couple of nuances of what I want to cover today, and I absolutely can say it's entirely possible I will jump around a little bit. But the number one goal that I want to leave you with, my goal for you, is to give you some new ideas about kind of places to start or kindling to kind of rekindle whatever the practice fire is. First of all, in the chat for both Facebook and YouTube, I included the diagrams for the second finger roots. And, Sustainiac is on. And I'm going to kill the delay here real quick. And so first and foremost, one of the things that is really important is having a sense of kind of, when you look at the instrument, there's some sort of order. For example, a starting place that, the ability to kind of go, hey, and this is an example because this is not the primary topic, but if we look at the very simple minor pentatonic scale, and that is G, B flat, C, D, F, G, and we kind of go, all right, well, this group of notes right here is being expressed via 2 notes on each string, and really it's this linear sound of a minor third, major second, minor third, major second, minor third, major second, minor third. That's just the sound that we're expressing. And as it turns out, if we map that and turn that, if you will, into 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1, or G, B flat, C, D, F, G, and we go G, B flat, C, D, F, G, B flat, C, D, F, G, B flat, that's where not only this fingering comes from, but this one, as we start off of each successive note and kind of run the scale starting from that note forward. When I was taught the minor pentatonic, that was the antithesis of how it was presented to me. So from the very beginning, we are traditionally kind of like, our hands and our brain are tied behind our back because we don't really know what it is. We don't know where it comes from. And we don't know how it relates to anything other than we know it's like, if you're playing blues, play that over the top. I'm like, okay. But the idea is the modes more or less take the same idea. If we were to take the key of G major, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, that's 2 holes and a half, 3 holes and a half. And that would express itself as G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, as in G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. And the whole thing about all of that talking and rambling and playing at the same time is I'm really just learned to go play the shape, a little out of tune there, my apologies, and be able to go G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G, and do them at the same time. But after a while, you just get used to doing it, and what ends up happening is you just kind of go, I know that that's a B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and you begin to recognize G, B, D, G, B, D, F sharp. You know, all the things that you might need to know. Oh, sorry. About that scale, you know, if you need to play a major 7, that you can play, you know, 1, 3, 5, 7. You can play 1, 7, 3, 5, and that's going to be G, B, D, F sharp. That's going to be G, F sharp, B, D, and you begin to have an intimacy, if you will, with that. So the concept of the modes is really taking that G major scale and starting it off of each tone, as in G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, that's Dorian. Phrygian is B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. Lydian, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, so on and so forth. Now, if you stack all of those at C and just take the first 8 notes, you end up with what is, and not just by virtue of the fact that it's just the first 8 notes, but by the virtue of the fact that you're changing between notes, it's what's called the pitch axis in the world of Joe Satriani and Lenny Tristano, which is where Joe got it. But the idea is it allows you to, amongst other things, if you take the major scale as your basis, people go, hey, well, if the Dorian mode goes like that, and the major scale is kind of the basis, as in major 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, that's Dorian 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1. Again, the third note of the major scale is there. The seventh note is there. Flat 3, flat 7. Major 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Dorian 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1. That little system there really goes a long way. The next little bit gets a little confusing for people, so I might like to make this analogy that there's 7 peapods in a row, and if you took the second peapod, which is starting off the second note of the major scale, as in the Dorian peapod, you opened it up and compared it 7 notes to the major scale, just like you saw there. It's Dorian 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1. And the first, third, and fifth notes of the Dorian mode compared to the major scale are 1, flat 3, and 5. So the order of these triads are major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major. And that right there is 99.9% of how the majority of the songs you're going to encounter work. And if they have a tendency to deviate from that, they'll do so in a way where they'll kind of jump from one of those families and then they'll just jump to another family of related chords and then back. So that there's been a little bit of talk about oh, come on, Doug. Here we go. I always find that yelling at myself manages me to get me in the mode there. So in the mode, so what's happening there is that's switching from A minor, the 6th chord. All right, let me back up a step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, as based on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th, and first notes of the major scale in the key of G, as in major, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, mixed Lydian, minor, Locrian, major, as expressed by the first, third, and fifth notes, which collectively are major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major. Little chord progression on there was playing 6 chord, 4 chord. Then what it was doing was then modulating. So it started off in A minor. That's the 4 chord. D minor. It's 4 chord. G minor. It's 4 chord. C minor, so on and so forth. So in that particular case, it's actually just breaking off the 6th chord and the 4th chord and going, we're going to move you through the circle of fourths. So basically it's going up a fourth, which is the same thing as going down a fifth. In any case, the idea is these triads allow us to express the first, third, and fifth notes of each of these modes in a way that allows us to be able to hear how chords can be expressed not only up and down one string as the root, but on a pair of strings, most importantly, the 6th and 5th string. So if I could teach you one important thing today, it's being able to take the key of G major, whose notes are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and think of that as G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G, as well as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This note right there is the 4, and that's C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, C, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D, C. 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4. And if I were to take these triads I played a minute ago, and those notes, take my word for it, are G, B, and D. I took the G, I moved it down an octave. I took the B and I left it in the same place, and I took the D and moved it down an octave. Basically, it gives me a power chord on the bottom as I walk through these guys, and when I get up to the F sharp, it has a flat 5 instead of a natural 5. So I take that 3, and you end up with these spread triads. They're called a spread triad because this is a 1, 3, 5. And if I go 1, skip the 3, and I go to the 5, and I go 5, skip the 1, and go to the 3, I'm kind of leapfrogging across. Instead of going 1, 3, 5, I'm going 1, 5, 3, or 1, 5, 3, 1, 5, flat 3, 1, 5, flat 3, 1, 5, 3, 1, 5, 3, 1, 5, flat 3, 1, flat 5, flat 3, 1, 5, 3. And you can hear the sound of the major scale being harmonized. I'll tune again in just a moment. My apologies. The worn out frets do not help. But basically, that's the essence of how you can use chords, not only up and down that string, but this is where the rubber hits the road. The majority of us play the majority of our chords on the 6th and 5th string, but we never taught a system of how being able to bounce back and forth between those two strings in a common key, unless you got Joe Satriani's giving you endless rain, or endless pain as it was called. So we're just taking this same scale from the C note, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, and where this went major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major, we're just taking it from this chord, major, major, minor, diminished, major, minor, minor, major, or you can think of it as 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. And by the way, you can rewatch this just because I'm going a little fast, but the idea is you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, sorry, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4. Now, this is the money part, so pay attention, and I will kind of go back and check your questions in just a minute, but the ability to go 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6, 4, 7, 5, 1, 6, 2, 7, 3, 1, 4 is how we begin to relate the chords in the way that we most commonly play chord progressions, jumping back and forth between chords on the 6th and 5th string, as in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6, 4, 7, 5, 1, 6, 2, 7, 3, 1, 4, 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, 4. And any type of chord you might want to play. Now what you can do, instead of going 1, 4, 2, 5, or sorry, 1, 4, 2, 5, like that, which, first of all, quick side note, but an important one, is there are going to be times where we're going to be faced with a choice, both when we're trying to figure out something that we've learned and or map chords for something that we've made up, where we go, hey, what's the best way to play that 5 chord? Over here, where if you listen, the nuance of that chord is very different on the 5th and 4th string than it is over here. If you're going for something a little bit punkier, staying on those common strings has a kind of like, I don't know theory, I don't want to know theory, and I'm okay not wanting to know theory kind of vibe to it. And when I say punk, I mean modern punk, which is, how do I describe it? Suburbs punk. How about that? Mommy and Daddy are driving the band members to rehearsal in the SUV. You know what I'm talking about. All right, verses going. Where we're going, hey, you know what? There's a little bit more economy emotion. I could have gone to the 4 there, but nah. I need to have that little jump there and the continuity of that sounds tiny, that sounds big enough. But beginning to think of that as 1, 4, 2, 5, and choosing which 1, 4, 2, 5 I'm going to play is the moral of the story. And the other thing that's great about this is you can also think about 1, 4. I'm going to go to 2, 5. Now I wouldn't play it there, but the point being is it allows you to begin to kind of go. If our chord progression is going 1, Endless Rain was 6, 4, 6, 4. Or 6, 4, 6, 4. So 6, 4. Where's my 4 chord? Oh, I don't want to play it up there. Fine. You get the point. But that is how you kind of go, oh, snap, the blinders are off. And now I have a system, and it's literally just kind of going the major scale, 1, hold a 2, hold a 3, after 4, hold a 5, hold a 6, hold a 7, after 1, G, hold a A, hold a B, after C, hold a D, hold a E, hold a F sharp, after G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. That's the 4th note. Little Addams Family. 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6, 4, 7, 5, 1, 6, 2, 7, 3, 1, 4. And the great thing about that. So on and so forth. So that basically is just going 1, 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6, 4, 7, 5, 1, 6, 2, 7, 3, 1, so on and so forth. And that in and of itself allows you to kind of go, wow, I have a whole other framework for playing arpeggios or tapped arpeggios, so on and so forth. Oh my word, hang on a second. Jaswinder Singh. Hello. Once upon a time, somewhere between late Cretaceous and Clinton administration, I sat in a chair in a studio in Berkeley, was handed a sheet of graph paper with these modes written out. I still practice them daily. Great to see you, my friend. Do me a favor, please say hello to your folks. Great to see you, or great to be seen by you, with you. All right. Okay, hang on a second. Let me back up a step. I got a couple hellos to say. First of all, great. Zach, good morning. Hello, hello. We've already raised him up, but raising him up to you, my friend, as I recall, you're a pizza guy? Is that what you do? Okay. So, Rafael, buenos dias, amigo. ¿Cómo está? Bien, bien. Mesa Boogie Mark 2C Plus. I'm just running straight in. And a little UA reverb. So there's a really good example. I'm going to take a quick left turn here because your question, basically I was going 6 chord, 2 chord, oh, wait, wait. Ooh. There it is. 6 chord. 2, 3, So I got a double, so that guy. So basically, I'm in A minor. I use that chord there. Basically, that's a D major in first inversion. That's going to be basically my 2-5 as. E is functioning as a 6. A minute ago, we talked about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What I'm doing is I'm using the chords to change the number that E is functioning as. That is to say, the tonal center. Did I say E? I meant A. The number that A is functioning as. So I'm starting off with A being, if you will. Again, we talked about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm making it function as a 6 chord. There's my 2. There's my 3. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this D major chord, which basically would make A now function. If this is, I'm choosing to make that be a 2. A 5. That makes this guy a 2. And I'm playing this chord in first inversion there. And then I'm going, but I'm instead of playing it like this, I'm playing it like this. And I'm then playing it like that, moving it up that little modulation. That's going to switch from Dorian. And so by changing the way, I'm basically doing a pitch axis. I'm basically making A function. I'm choosing to have, so over that minor 7 chord, I could play a minor 7 chord over the 2, 3, and a 6, but I'm choosing it to be the 6. Then I'm going to this. Now I could. I could just walk that modulation up. So in which case I would be switching between, gosh, I'm still a little bit out, and I apologize, this thing goes in tomorrow to get a refret, and it just doesn't really kind of want to play or stay in tune, just needs a little bit of TLC, which is going to get, but I kind of, all right, so the story is, the chords are telling you, minor 7 chord, I can play that as a 2 chord, because the Dorian mode has a 1, flat 3, 5, and a flat 7. That's what's in there. I can play it as a as a 3 chord, or I can play it as, and I'm choosing to play it as a 6 chord. And then when I go to this minor 7 chord, that's going to be my 6 and my 2. Common key, and again, a minute ago we went kind of 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6, 4, 7, 5, 1, 6, 2. So I'm doing that right here. And if that's a 2, and I play another minor 7 chord a whole step above it, that's going to be 3. So I'm going 6, 2, 3, and then what I'm doing is I'm going. So initially my plan was when I went there, that's going to be functioning as the, I'm choosing, that's that D major in, that's D, there's my F sharp, and A, that's a D major, I'm putting the F sharp in the bass. Instead of going D, F sharp, A, I'm going F sharp, A, F sharp, F sharp, A, D. But the inversion is spelled out, if you will, root position, or first inversion, or second inversion, by what the lowest note is. The order of the other notes doesn't matter. But I'm choosing to play this, and then initially that was going to be when I was going to go into Dorian. That's kind of like my used way too much chord mode change that I'm going from minor, Dorian. Then with this guy, I was going to go to harmonic minor, but there's a kind of an old school little fusion thing where if you ever saw them, where they're kind of hauling around a mode, you know, hey, come here, you're going to play the same mode up a whole step. So if you took that idea of taking the Dorian mode over this guy, although the tonal center stays at A, we're kind of going, hey, we're taking whatever, this is funky. In this case, we're saying, hey, this is going to be the 5 chord as it relates to the 1. Sorry, the 5 chord as it relates to the 2. And now this is going to be the 5 chord as it relates to that being the 1. And then we're back to our 6. Sorry. And the cool thing about a little ride like that, if you choose to interpret it like that, whatever idea you played, you just can walk it up that whole step as the chord goes. In this case, D in first inversion. Or you can say it A and just go minor. 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 Dorian. Major. Just to kind of go, okay, I see what's going on there. And again, if you want to go over this modal madness, you can always kind of rewatch the video and just kind of pick it up from there. But the idea is we're using the relationship between the chords and the bass note to affect a mode change. And I kind of just by dumb luck kind of fell into that. But the neat thing is that these chords will speak to you. And that is to say, if I sit here and play that chord. So any of the places that I play that minor 7 chord, I will have a natural 4. I can also, so that was interpreting it as a 2. And you can mix in the pentatonic, the minor pentatonic that is, to make it a little bit more bluey. Now that's interpreting it as a 3 chord, Phrygian. And you can play the pentatonic. You can also add a little. Not pushing the note over the neck. You can also play it as Phrygian with a little bit of. You can also play it. Point being is the chords, once you kind of learn to hang with them and hear their modal quote-unquote options, then you kind of get comfortable going, You can be whatever I'm going to choose to make you. Now, the deal about this little bit that I was showing you before, it allows us to see that when you turn on a take, you have a minor chord, and you can see what's a fourth above it. That spells out a lot of the relationships we have a tendency to create in chord progression. So when we had a minor, you know, in any place you play a minor chord, you can play a minor 7 chord. Just take my word for it. And kind of a fourth above it, you'll have either at the 2 and the 5. We're just going to keep it minor and major. 2 and 5 is minor with a major. 3 and 6 is a minor with a minor. And a 6 and a 2 is a minor with a minor. So if you got a chord progression that's going... could be either Phrygian, but most of the people will hear that as a 6 and a 2. Usually if you want Phrygian, you're going to do something more like... right? You're going to do something very obviously Phrygian, because you really want to, you not only want to call it the natural 2, or the flat 2 rather, but in combination with the natural 5, because Locrian, which by the way, I have fallen in love officially. We're dating. The Locrian mode, if you listen to it, and once you get past this, you're like, oh, please. A few weeks ago, I backed myself into a corner where I said, you know, if you ever get into blah, blah, blah purgatory, this is going to be playing. That is like purgatory. You're greeted with a never-ending drone of a diminished triad going all day long. You know, it's just like, holy cow, please give me another chance. But on its own... it has a beautiful sound to it. Locrian is to Phrygian what Lydian is to major. It's one of my favorite. There's major. Now I love the happiness in the major scale. Woohoo! But sounding scale, and it's just got that little bit of... That's what sharp 4. Sharp 4 is officially we go major, Lydian 2, 3, 5. It's gonna be one of those days. But if you think about Locrian, as long as you can ignore, like, hi, I'm Locrian, nice to meet you, I got a diminished chord at my root. It's like, it's just, it makes it hard to approach. All right, let me jump back in here. First of all, Nandini, hello, great to see you. There we go. Cheers. Yes, so no MIDI, but there are various MIDI devices that you can use to control this guy. Both these amps have MIDI implementation. The idea behind the reissue and the original was, it was just going back in time, going, hey, with Boogie, none of the things that they've ever done. It was kind of like studying with Joe Satriani. Everything he taught me was intentional. There was a purpose behind it. I think one of the things that I love, being surrounded by basically the history of Mesa Boogie. There's an amp that I have been told I have first right of refusal. That's literally one of the original Prune Boogies, and it has been authenticated as being one of the original amps. And literally from the very beginning, they were very intentional about what they did. So the idea with this amp is that it was intended to be basically a one-channel, two-mode amp where you added additional gain staging. And so, but at that time, I don't even think MIDI 1.0 had been rolled out. So the idea is when you reissue an amp like that, how much of the modern things are you going to add to it, or are you going to take the purist approach, and and so on and so forth. So the neat thing is with the channel switching functionality, there's the MIDI matrix back there that I can change the channels, turn the reverb on and off, turn the graphic EQ on and off, and do all of those things and control that via MIDI. So there are other ways to get there. It's a great question, by the way, and I'm glad you asked that because I'm a rig freak. So there is that. Matt King, hello. Let me guess. Dunkin' Donuts for you, my friend. That is to say, that usual pint-sized concoction that I see you drinking. Exactly, with pleasure. Albert, absolutely old school, just like you and me, if I can include you in the same bundle. Grab another off the Flying V pile, Raphael. So I'm going to hang here for just a minute, simply because it's going to enable me to be comfortable and at home. But you know what? I could easily be seduced by the Flying V pile. 1993, the first release. There we go. So that MIDI spec, when this amp, when the Mark II C Plus rolled off the line, I don't think MIDI 1.0 was actually officially out yet, which is crazy. Yes, worn frets. It's a great excuse for playing out of tune, by the way. Oh, my frets are worn. Again, Jasmine, great to see. Are you still in Los Angeles? Where are you, my man? So the stainless steel frets. So do me a favor, people, let me know down in the chat there who likes stainless steel frets and who does not like the feel of stainless steel frets. So, the funny thing is Gary Bauer, my guitar tech, and I have had this conversation a couple of times. And the Petrucci guitar, I believe, is a stainless steel fret instrument. And in case y'all didn't know, this is part of the discussion we're going to get to today, is guitar maintenance and gear maintenance and gear planning and all of that. But I really wanted to kind of, plant a seed about kind of looking at the instrument maybe a little bit differently as you jump into 2025. Seed planted. I don't like the feel, generally speaking, of stainless steel frets. I don't mind them on the Petrucci guitar, but the conversation has been had is like, when we go to do this, I think they also sound a little bit different. And like the Mesa Boogie stuff, the Petrucci guitars are designed to do a very specific thing, and the sound of the stainless steel frets, in my opinion, are an integral part of the way that guitar is tuned. And so as an end result, I actually think it would not sound as good with non-stainless steel frets. I need to double check the stats on that, but I am fairly certain those are stainless steel. And for those of you who don't know, stainless steel frets, wait for it, don't wear as fast as your good old, whatever the hell these are made out of, regular frets. I should know. In any case, that is that. What music store? How is it that I didn't know? The only store music. Oh, in Santa Monica. Hang on a second. I should know this. True Tone. Is it True Tone Music in Santa Monica? They had nothing I wanted. Daniel, what's going on, my man? Hello. We got gears there. Melissa always said, that's an amazing shot. It's an amazing shot. GC is 3.3 miles away. Anything you need, whenever you want. GC has become the new Radio Shack. Modal interchange. There we go. Thank you very much. Look at you. So Matt is a brilliant guitar player, dear friend, and knows a thing or two about a thing or two. And so he describes this as modal interchange, which I think is also a lovely way to do that. So and the idea is this little guy and this is the neat thing about kind of going, what can it be? And that is to say, as I got to this chord, my initial intention was to have that functioning as basically as I'm basically taking what would normally, if we're in the key of A minor, that would normally be my 3 chord. The telltale sign of harmonic minor or Phrygian dominant is taking the 3 chord instead of giving it a flat 3. And as it relates to this scale here, that note becomes a G sharp from a G, making it harmonic minor. So my idea was initially to go 6 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord. That I'm making that guy basically as my 5 chord off of D. And basically turn that guy into my 3 major, is what some people describe that as. Forcing this guy to be into a harmonic minor. But as I kind of looked at the little horsey ride that's happening there, they're like, oh, that's such a pretty little way to take a motif. What's neat about this is that it's instant motif. So whatever you do, hold on. There we go. What's neat is you get that change over the last chord. Anytime you can go from major to minor, it's a lovely modal interchange. Thank you for that, Matt. Always a pleasure. Muchas gracias, senor. So literally, I'm just coming out of this guy. I'm going into, watch me pull a cab clone out of my drawer. That sounds bad. I have multiple drawers here, but that's just a single drawer. I did not say watch me pull a cab clone out of my drawers. I said drawer. Keep it clean. So this is cab clone IR. I'm coming out of here. I'm coming out of the 8 ohm output into an 8 ohm. These are specifically intended to run at a specific impedance match. And so this basically the native boogie cabinets want to run at 8 ohms. So I'm coming out of the 8 ohm speaker out. This is a reactive load box and also loading with this rotary switch right here. That's an 8-way position with 2 banks. The upper position is live venue style mics. The lower position is studio style mics. My go-to thing is basically those cabinets behind me, the big Mesa Boogie 412 oversized rectifier cabinets, and that's kind of where that thing mostly lives, not exclusively, but amazingly enough. So that is that with just this bit of reverb. Here it is in all its nakedness. You want to trim the feathers off your chicken. And so the crazy thing is that really wild lead tone that I had going at the top is literally just engaged by doing, you know, the... I'm going to bring in a little delay because I'm gonna. Little neck pickup action. That's the thing about the boogie amps, that flippin' A, what an amp. All right, I digressed. Sorry. All right. Love that. BC Rich 581. I don't know you, but I love that photo. Tell me more. Okay. A little bit. Sonny, hey, you're popping in. That's twice in 2 weeks, my man. So what y'all don't know about Sonny is way back in the day when I had lots of puffy hair, I guess I still kind of do, I had a band called Captain Crunch, and we, and this is friendship for you. And Sonny had just gotten the RG. What was it? It was an RG5. Sonny, if you're still here, it was an RG. Basically, it was this beautiful, beautiful, brand new RG. He just got it, just insane. So I said, "Can I borrow your guitar when I go into the studio?" And I basically used it for all the solos, or a bunch of them for this band I had called Captain Crunch. And but you know, it was just a great guitar and an act of generosity. Very rarely expressed. So great to see you, my friend. Stainless steel strings. So, you know, this is an interesting, you know, okay. Let me first of all just run down and say hello to everybody, and we're gonna jump in that. I have them on the PA. How do you like them, by the way? That also is a great idea. Mark Turvey, hello, my friend. I'm kind of curious to know how this single coil thing is going, and I came to a realization. I was thinking about you this morning. So I am in demo world, and in demo world, I frequently start pulling guitars out as I kind of get ready to kind of do different demo things. And with that in mind, there are different guitars that I pull out because the idea is if you play the same guitars over and over, you kind of start doing the same sort of things. So as you're looking at instruments, and by the way, I am your spouse's worst friend because I will hopefully always inspire you to buy that next piece of gear or be amongst the people are. So this is one of the original YJM Strats. And this is, well, okay, fine. No idea how in or out of tune this guitar is going to be, but let's take the plunge. And I don't really know how it's going to sound with this other than, I don't know, let's take the plunge. But it's it's basically the greatest Strat that Fender never made, even though it's a Fender Strat. And I say that because basically it's kind of like a 70s Strat made, I don't know, whenever they made this in the 2000s. Hang on, I need to de-grunge these strings. All right, so part of what we're going to talk about today is guitar maintenance and gear maintenance. Chris Alexander, bless his dear soul. I'm obviously not going to make it all the way down the list of salutations yet, but it is time for, wait for it. Come on, Doug, you can do this. You can do this. There we go. Chris's questions. Gosh, I love that photo. Every time I see that, I'm just like, how cool is that? And the look on Chris's face is pretty much priceless. That just warms the heart, I got to tell you. All right. So Chris is kind enough to always, fire through some questions. And one of the things he asked about was kind of maintenance of your tubes on your, oh my word, that string is toasty. Maintenance of tubes on your tube amp, but there's also kind of general gear maintenance. And, being the end of the year, it's a really great time to talk about that. Normally, I can find, oh, well, looky here. Ha! Now we're talking. So if you do not possess one of these things, may I strongly suggest that you do. So basically, this is a string measuring doohickey, and that is 40.5, and you'll find that as much as different manufacturers say it's exactly this high E string is measuring 8.5, 9.0. There's no way that these are 8.5s. I know. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, there you go. Now it's measuring 9.0. So you just want to make sure that you basically seal the deal to the appropriate tension. But this is a tool, and somebody out there will know the proper name. My apologies for not knowing. But I possess a tool. This is a vital part of your guitar universe. Every guitar you own, before you change the strings, if you don't know the exact gauge of strings that are on there, measure. What do they say? Measure twice, cut once, right? So the idea is it allows you to know what's on there. One of my favorite resources is the Sweetwater website, because for virtually every guitar that they sell, you can see, if you go to the page, and they even keep pages up for instruments they no longer sell, you can see what strings came on the instrument in terms of the gauge. They don't always say which manufacturer, and truth be told, I am a Dunlop endorser, and proud to be one. A rightly huge majority of the strings that come stock on different instruments are basically strings that D'Addario manufactures for other brands. So it's a very high probability that the strings came stock on whatever guitar, with the exception of some of the Fenders. And so I also have some Fender strings that have the color coding of D'Addario. I don't know whether there's a patent on that. I perhaps should know, but I can say that the Fenders, in my mind at least, so there's reality, and then there's what the nonsense you make on my your A being, oh man, that one sounds that much better. All of a sudden you're like, I'm going between the same two sounds. The point being is that finding out what the original strings were on a guitar, because quite often the unique makeup of the metallurgy of the string it has a lot to do with the way the pickup hears the string. Also, the volume is going to impact the way you play. It's also how bright or how dull or how bassy or how little bass there is going to impact things. The other thing is the relationship of the transient of how the pick and the string interacts when they kind of make contact. how much give there is on the string. So all those things matter. That is if you're thinking about, as you're thinking about the Louis, there was some demo on the last Mark II C Plus demo that I did where I was doing some kind of moshy kind of thrash thing, and I don't normally play that style at all. It was on this guitar and its sister, but I was like, it was kind of what the demo called for, and the way that string relates to the pick is really important when you're doing fast 16th notes, and more importantly, double tracking them. So how I guess we could describe that as the tracking of the string. So the idea, I would encourage you to go out and try a couple of different sets of strings maybe, and just kind of go, am I in fact playing the strings that I want to? Generally speaking, I've started making the shift. So this guy, per the broken string, and by the way, it's a very bad idea to do what I've done here. I broke a string on dime, and it's with these locking fine tuning tremolos, I always string them in such a way I can let some extra string out of the headstock and reclamp it. But this guy needs a string change, and originally the strings that were on there were Gibson strings, which would not have come stock on the Dean, obviously. But I really liked the way they sounded on the guitar, and I liked the character of the way the guitar behaved. But I'm going to switch those over to Dunlop's. And again, that's where this tool becomes so valuable, is taking measurements. So one of the things that I will not suggest doing for your average human being is across the top of your headstock putting a piece of tape and putting what the strings are gauge-wise above each one of the tuners. Because that will probably, on at least enough instruments that I won't suggest it unless you're willing to do it, it will discolor the wood there. The blue painter's tape will eventually interact with your finish, and I don't want to be the person that, like, a couple of years from now you peel it off and you're like, that flippin' Doppler. I'm probably pretty close to doing that on all my guitars, because my guitars will follow me to the grave. So the point being is that's a really good way of just putting what gauges are on there, and maybe a little designation that you have of which brand or which kind of set, if there's kind of some variation thereof. But the point being is that being able to look at a guitar and immediately be able to track that is a really good idea. And that way what's on the instrument. The same thing potentially holds true, maybe with tuning as well. What's that guitar tuned at? If you develop enough different guitars and you want to reach for something quickly, knowing what the strings are tuned to, being able to see that across the top. That's one of the other things that I've seen techs do. But as it relates, Mark, to this particular guitar, I mean, it's good. Thing about the still a little gummy. Get used to getting that bar. Flippin' great guitar. I purposely put it away for periods of time because it's just so good. If you play it all the time, you start to sound like the guitar, and I can't afford to just sound like one guitar, with the exception of the main Flying V. But the point being, Mark, if you're still watching, I would encourage you to not just do one or the other. Do both. That way you're kind of like, you're taking everything that you already do so incredibly well on your humbucking guitars, and you're adding to that universe, and you're creating breadth and depth inside your playing. That way, as you go to pick up a guitar with humbuckers, you've got like an EVH, some sort of kind of beautiful orangey burst. You sound great on the guitar. Do not stop doing that. It sounds too great. I think what happened, no, my buddy Chris, this is my buddy Chris Lewis's guitar, and something happened. There you go. There was some little guitar accident that happened in the studio, and there's a little. Wait a second. I got all fancy today. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. Hey, hey, hey. Hold on. Let's try that again. Hello. You. Hold on. Stop. No, stop. All right. There we go. Thank you. There we go. This little bit of business happened on a borrowed guitar, which is really like I was like, and I was like, I'm really sorry. Let's work some sort of trade deal. So this guitar came into my possession. These are, somebody's going to ask down in the chat, these are the DiMarzios. So this is an older YJM Strat, and this is a phenomenal guitar. It's, you know, as you heard, it's got all the beautiful lead tunes. A little quiet there. It's got a three-way switch. So I recall it's got what I call the Eric Johnson mod. Such that when you jump into the bridge. Flippin' A, that's a great guitar. So the ability to roll off on the bridge volume, tone control. That good. All that to say, Mark, like, you know, oh, okay. Fine. Damn it, Jim. So, I pulled this out, and I didn't play it on the last, whoa, that's the wrong cable. When I said, damn it, Jim, I guess I knew what I was saying. All right, hang on a second here. The craziest thing is a whole generation of people that have absolutely no idea what damn it, Jim means. Kind of tragic. All right. There we go. I have fully digressed. So this is the guitar I bought in 1979, maybe 1980, 81 at the latest. But this guitar has been with me the longest of any of them. And if you look really closely, let's see if I can get my foot switch going. You gonna work here today? There we go. You can see the little line from where I kind of put little Van Halen style tape on this guitar. I remember walking into a guitar lesson with Jones, and he kind of looked at that, and his head kind of turned. He said, "I guess I would have done that if I were your age," you know. But this guitar has been with me for a long time, and thankfully, you know, it's had a few little dents here and there, but there's nothing like going back and playing an instrument. And speaking of frets, these guys have never been replaced. They've been worn down to a whole bunch of nothing, but this guitar is very special, so kind of nice to get a chance to play it for you today. The point being, Mark, if you're still here, the Strat family is a great family to have to add to whatever it is that you're already doing. And I might have misunderstood when you're saying, I'm going single coil. But, you know, it doesn't have to be one or the other. And I want to encourage anybody here, not just Mark, you know, there's a whole other side of your playing that you get a chance to discover when you kind of do one or the other. So there you have it. Tom, there's a reason your last name is Cuts. Yeah, so my comment was, his Guitar Center has become the new Radio Shack, and his comment was, and look where Radio Shack is now. If I had the whammy bar, I'd go, well put. There we go. Te deseamos un prospero año nuevo. Y usted también, muchas gracias, Esteban. Gracias. Muy buen amigo de muchos años. Pasado y presente en, ¿cómo se dice? Ayer? Is that to come? Muy bien. Gracias. Muchas gracias. Thankfully, we have the Relative Modal Relay chart in front of me. Thank you very much. No drawer. Yeah. Watch me pull a Cam Clone IR out of my drawer. This is an amazing box. You know, the interesting thing is it's not new. There are other boxes that have a couple of other tricks, like the ability, the two-note stuff, where you can move the microphone around. But, you know, this is one of the things that generally people who start to use IRs a bunch eventually say, you know, like, I don't want 1,000 options. I just want a great sound. I just want to plug it in. And those cabinets and the IRs that were shot of them that are in there, they just did a great job. And, you know, it's kind of like, well, if it's great, then it's great. Kevin, what's going on? Duo, thanks for the tone. With great pleasure. I like that. That's a new photo, isn't it? Yeah, the frets on this are a little, and it's crusty. All right, I was talking about maintenance, so I'm gonna, as I continue to walk through here. First of all, hang on, let me just say hello to everybody. When do I plan to cover the VP4? There is a demo that is in the works. Hey, look at that. I guess I know that shot. Maybe not. Is that a new one? That's very Pia of you. You're looking very Pia today. But the VP4 is going to make its way in there, and I'm going to get a chance to get to know that unit in the course of that. Michael, hello. Great to see you. Always nice photos, everybody. Captain Crunch, oh yeah. RG550, come on. Great guitars, right? I think that's what it was, but I'm not sure, right? All right, Shot Doctor, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Hey, look at that shot. Speaking of single coil, that looks like a Strat to me. Come on. I like that photo. Hello. Shot Doctor, how do I know you? And is that, where do I know you from, my dear friend? Welcome if this is your first show, and if not, my apologies for not remembering previously. Titanium, stainless steel, or aluminum? It's a great question. So, interesting. So, there we go. So, as I thought, judging by the photo, that we have a bass player in the house. So, the interesting thing is, the back in the day, Travis Bean. So, interesting. Kramer started kind of as a company, if I got this right, and this would be going back to maybe 1976, wandering into a Guitar Center in San Francisco. Who can remember the phone numbers of all their favorite music stores? Like Guitar Center San Francisco was 441-4020. I think Don Weir's Music City was 673-8989. Leo's Music was, I think, 652-0565. Arinda Music was 254-0522. So all my favorite music stores, of course, you call them and you get somebody kind of going, who is this? Although maybe those were all, kind of landlines, so maybe they've been assigned to nobody. And they just, we're sorry, but the number you've reached has been disconnected and is no longer in service. But Travis Bean made these, what I think were aluminum necks, and the Kramer's first kind of claim to fame was kind of, as I understood it, kind of tributizing them. And so the first Kramers kind of had these crazy aluminum necks. They were basses primarily, and then they stepped into the guitar world. So the interesting thing is that the aluminum neck thing, and then being from the San Francisco Bay Area here, the folks at down on it's Stars Guitars, the Modulus graphite instruments, that they kind of got their birth in the Bay Area here. All right, as I digressed from this maintenance thing, just be conscious of what strings are on there. And one of the other things that I had planned on mentioning is that generally speaking, I find that Fender scale instruments at standard tuning generally like to be 9 through 42. A guitar like this for a number of years would have been 9 through 40 because that's what a bullet set would be. So it had a slightly lighter low E string because the bullets went, I think they were 9, 11, 15, 24, maybe 30, and then 40. So I think they went a little bit lighter on the A string and the E string, but I know for a fact that the low E string was a 40. And, the bullets were these strange little strings that kind of had this round little, it looked like the end of a bullet, and they kind of slipped right into the block that was on the back of these guitars. And those of you who don't know, many of these instruments, I broke the tremolo arm on this guitar no less than 3 times. And so back in the day, they used to basically have a bridge and a block that there would be 3 little set screws underneath the saddles there, that's how you detach them. So I think I was under warranty, and Fender I somehow got them to keep sending me blocks. I don't think I had to buy it. It was like, I broke the arm, and I don't know, they kept sending me more, which was very generous considering. And then so you'd have to kind of pull the whole tremolo assembly apart, unscrew the bridge from the block, put the new block on, and that's how you do it. Every so often, if you were lucky, the tremolo would break, the arm would break just above where the block met the body. And I discovered that, I think the last one that they sent me, I was like, oh, I was able to pull that thing out. In any case, I digress. Slide caliper. Thank you very much. So this guy right here is a slide caliper. Use this to measure this. What I was not able to find, and I believe my dear friend Chris Lewis that had loaned me that other guitar, and I did say I was going to jump around, has an orange tube tester, and I don't know if those are still available. I think they did a reissue of that, and those are great. So the other thing is that you might want to do is create a Google Doc that for all your amplifiers lists what tubes are in them, if you dare, brand, and there's a whole thing on the boogie board where I kind of spent a bunch of time hanging out. Really cool bunch of people, and there are a number of different STR variants of tubes, of slightly different tubes that Boogie kind of releases with their own little nomenclature. And so kind of knowing what tube came stock in your amplifier, what new tube is in there, allows you to know what to reorder when you go to, presuming you're like, hey, I just want more of the same. I have not personally gone all the way down the tube rabbit hole, simply because to do that, it's sooner than later there's going to be a video coming for the Badlanders, and you have the ability on those 2 amps to run them with the bias switch to run them with EL34s or 6L6s. You can't mix and match them. But it is a noticeable difference, not giant, but noticeable. They sound a lot more alike than dissimilar because it's the same amp. But the way the bottom end it is noticeably different in the bottom end. The 6L6 has a little bit more stuff going on in the bottom end, and that's one of the reasons the EL34s are tighter. They're kind of, if you're going to have one that you can use for tight 16th notes, that's going to be it. So also maybe making as part of your maintenance process, like, I don't know, let me try some 6L6s in an amp that's got a bias switch, or the ability to swap out the tubes and kind of go, what do I really like? Make some production notes about that. Also keep that in mind if you're in the recording process. But pretty much anything that you put on your instruments, if we're going to go down the Eric Johnson rabbit trail, and Eric Johnson, by the way, he actually, there was an interview with him, and it may have been one that I did, where we were kind of talking about his pedal board, and he said, well, people give me a hard time, because first of all, he just wants things to be right, but people, I think maybe he's a little bit more of a tone tweaker than he actually is, versus actually the batteries do make a difference. And he was saying in terms of the pedals, there are basically electromagnetic fields that can happen as you begin to kind of put gear together in the same space. And he was just he happened to accidentally turn a pedal on his pedal board, and a noise either appeared or disappeared. And he was like, wait a second, what? And it was really neat to kind of watch him describe it. He was like, that's not supposed to happen. So he's like, he kind of turned the pedal, and the noise went, and was like, I guess I'll be leaving it there. So most of this stuff is form and function. So being conscious of your batteries, that's another thing, is if you've got a guitar like those guys on the battery door, it's a great place for a piece of tape, so long as you know that at some point it might discolor it. Put the date of when you change the battery. The other thing is I have I should have had these out before, but I have this little guy. So if I need to test a battery, I can. I'm sure I got this on the one and only Amazon. But this is great. I can test any and all of my battery form factors, and it's really great to be able to kind of go, oh, that 3 or 4 batteries over there, are they good or are they bad? Not actually have to stick them in a guitar. The other thing is this little carrying case for my 9 volts is a really cool thing to have around. So we will talk for a moment about Amazon Basics batteries. They kind of suck. But they're good enough that if you're going to go through a bunch of them, and that if you need to depend on one, you change it before the gig, then they're good enough, right? I find that they don't have a great shelf life, and I also find that they do have a tendency to wear out a little faster than quality batteries like Eveready and Duracell. There was a period of time you could walk into not Rite Aid. I'm going to try and remember the name of the pharmacy, but rumor had it, and per my experience, their house branded batteries were the same as Eveready, and as long as you're buying the alkaline batteries, they sounded great. The other thing is that there are certain vintage pieces of gear that you actually might not necessarily get the best sound running an alkaline battery. Some of these older batteries, the less efficient batteries, they seem to work better in some of these. You get just a slightly different tone, and so just something to keep in mind. The other thing is certain power supplies have, I think, the pair of visual sound or True Tone power supplies kind of behind me, those blue lights staring at you. I think they have a sag control for one or more of the outputs, and that allows you to kind of get that vintage battery kind of, and or I'm not quite running at 9 volts, and then kind of make it sound the way you want to sound. It's a very cool feature. So being aware, and aware of where things are sitting, in terms of cables, being aware, as soon as a cable starts to show signs that something's not right, I would encourage at that point. By the way, sorry, this did not quite come out as organized as I had planned, but that's because I didn't really organize, so it's going to sound like I didn't plan to do that. But the blue painter's tape is something that I live with. The funny thing is that those guys, I actually, when I'm shooting a demo, just because stuff just gets moved if you're not careful. Matter of fact, I've got, I don't know for a fact that they sell them on their own, but we're going to go down the rabbit trail around this stuff. But this is the bag for them, and there's another one that's got the little pads in here. But if you take a look underneath the feet for the Mark II C Plus, there are these little kind of furniture pads that come in a little thing like this that comes with this amplifier. And it makes it such that I don't leave little black marks on my bazillion-dollar hardwood enclosure there. So these are really cool. Chances are you can get these for Boogie, and where you're going to want to use them, if you have any cabinets that are covered in white or non-black Tolex, that's where it really matters. The orange gear, I've noticed the feet can discolor the orange wrap, which I'm forgetting the name of. I've got a Bogner half stack over there that the head discolored the cabinet below it. And kind of once that happens, you can't really undo it. I will also say, though, if you ever get kind of scuff marks on your white Tolex, thank you, Tolex, you can use, to a certain extent, and just make sure you kind of clean it off on some paper beforehand. Pencil eraser. But make sure that you kind of, on a piece of paper or something, just kind of get rid of the first of all, when you use an eraser, it's pulling something off the piece of paper, and guess where it goes? Some of it kind of ends up in eraser dust, but the other thing that happens, some of that discoloration makes its way onto here, so you don't want to actually draw that into your Tolex. But the idea is giving it a little rub on whatever, and actually when you notice when you do that, you're going to see black stuff come off, partially because my keyboard stand is dirty, but you'll also know that the end of this thing starts to get a little bit lighter because it does. So then that's when you want to kind of clean that stuff up. Soapy water is good. You just want to be careful of not using anything that is too much of a detergent, and you also want to be careful when cleaning. If you've got some sort of thing that's got a screen on it, be very conscious that dust can sometimes get harder particles in it, so you'll take something, and generally speaking, paper towel is a no-no. Anytime you're cleaning something with glass or something, sometimes that can actually scratch. I had a Digi 002 or 003, and I used a paper towel and I used to clean it and left these scratches in the kind of the plasticine covers over the numbers. I was like, won't be doing that again. But generally speaking, there are lots of really good polished cloths. Anything, if you happen to be a glasses wearer, these are great. I would also encourage you to kind of keep specific types of polish cloths for specific types of purposes. That way, you're not spreading dirt that you would, collectively, all these amps, get dusty to a certain extent. Anything that I want to keep super pristine, I don't want to be rubbing that stuff into it. So that is a general thing. Ideally, you want to try and keep your fingerboards pretty clean. I have actually found that my thumb, if you're willing to spend the time, and there's all sorts of disgusting stuff that will come off there, is a good start. You can also, there are a bunch of people, and I've done it in the past, that will use, this is the disadvantage of getting old. Certain words just disappear. I'm aware of it. It happens. Steel wool. Steel wool is a good thing. The thing that you've got to be really, really careful of is not steel wooling your frets. And so generally pulling all the strings off and then just lightly steel wooling the fingerboard can get you there. You can also do the same thing with a really, 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 really light sandpaper. But I tell you what, I'm going to retract that for a moment. I'm going to have to check with Gary Brower and see what he's got to say about really light sandpaper. There's really shouldn't be any difference between steel wool and a really light sandpaper. But you got to be aware of the fact that eventually, like this guitar, you can see there's all sorts of pitting that's happening in the fingerboard. And, at a certain point, like Steve Morse had happen with his old number one, the fingerboard, after a certain number of refretting, there's nothing left. So you want to be really careful to use the least abrasive thing to get the gunk off there. As I understand it, Tom Petty's one of his favorite guitars, he does not let them take the junk off the fingerboard. Nobody's allowed to clean it, and I don't know whether it's a touch thing or a tone thing or something, but he's like, you can't clean the stuff off of there. Good old calipers. I have like 5 sets. Thank you, Kevin. They are. I love that, by the way. Your avatar, very dignified. Um, but the idea is that the other thing is this kind of the when you're done. First of all, especially if you have sweaty fingers, um, find, and this is one of the places where actually the grittiness, although you don't necessarily think of paper towel as gritty, but if you run your fingers against it, you can feel, if you will, the graininess of it. It's great. That's not too bad. Hear that high chirp? That chirp is the sign of disgustingness. That's that dried sweat. So how do you know when you need to change a string? That's a great question. A couple of things will happen on the Ingve guitar over there, and I can feel it here as I went up and down the D string. The D string in particular is one of the strings you really notice at first, is you can feel where the string hits, where it'll sit over the frets. And as soon as that happens, get the strings off of there. It's not really great for the frets. It's not really great for the sound. Get them off there, give them a change, and that's a good thing to do. Because when you go to reach for a guitar and you're like, oh, I'm going to go that guitar, and you're like, oh, the strings, they're toast. One, it won't be the experience it's supposed to be. Two, out of respect for the instrument, because I really, each one of these guitars plays a very special. For me, because I'm spending more time in the demo chair. When I pull out one of those instruments, they're extremely important because I have a very strong emotional connection to each one of these guitars. They mean a great deal to me. They're an extension of myself, an extension of my music. It's not just a tool that I use for making music. So, there's a love affair that I have for each one of these guitars. So when I pull out one of my babies, I kind of want to feel that the instrument, I'm treating it with the respect that it deserves. And so this one had been on loan to somebody, and it kind of came back. And it just needs a little bit of TLC, so it's going to get it. But it's a great guitar. All right, there we go. Thank you. There we go. Digital slide caliper. There we go. So the interesting thing is Randy Roos was a guy. I think he was a Berkeley teacher, and he had a fretless 12 string, and he was kind of making some noise in like the early 80s. So very interesting guy. Armando Diaz. Hello, Armando. Boy, right to the point. So I have heard rumor that there is a dual rectifier reissue in the works. I can neither confirm nor deny that I have knowledge or lack thereof of said amplifier. However, I can say that I have a Rev G dual rectifier over there, and I would say that, like the Mark IIc Plus, of two of the amps that are in my collection that I absolutely love, it certainly would be awesome to see not only the existing publicly facing Mark IIc Plus reissue, but it certainly would be lovely to see a reissue of that wonderful, wonderful amplifier that has graced. The great thing about these old boogies is that I've kind of gone out of my way to collect these amps because they're historically significant and musically significant. So while I can neither confirm nor deny, because it would not be appropriate for me to say one way or the other, I can say that they're really important amplifiers, and that Rev G amp, it's a really, really, really special amplifier. And the other thing I will say about those amps, different from the Mark IIc Plus, because it's an interesting thing. The dual Rex, there's an era of music that my last record was new instrumental, and it was basically inspired by all the really amazing new metal bands that I fell in love with, like Linkin Park. But also, although the album didn't reflect it, they're also kind of those quote-unquote punk bands like Fall Out Boy and the bands that were around then. it was a great time for American rock and roll, and the dual rec was such an integral part of that sound. So I just absolutely I loved and love Limp Bizkit, but there's a whole bunch of things about that amp. I was on tour in Europe for New Instrumental, and Y&T was playing across town, and Dave Medicaid, who I'm sure a number of you are fans of, was playing, and he was using a dual rec, and he had so there are a couple of different modes that you can run that amp in, kind of a modern and a vintage mode, and the different modes. The bottom end behaves differently, and in the vintage mode, it's just got this beautiful kind of, dare I say, dad rock kind of vibe to it that I was just like, I remember hearing him play. It was one of the best tones I've ever heard. Period. It's in his hands, but the amp was just filling the room. I was like, I didn't know it could do that, and so they're a different animal than the Mark amps, and because of that, they're very, very special to me, and play. There's I think all of us, given kind of the number of people that were making their love for Metallica, they associate this as the Metallic amp, and there's a whole bunch of us that know. Well, there is Lukather, and I don't know, there is John Petrucci, and there is Prince, and all these players that played Night Ranger, but when people have that association, it's a very emotional connection. It's actually an amazing thing about Mesa Boogie that these amps have such a draw. I was thinking about the difference between Boogie and Marshall. I think Marshall has a bunch of that, but not like the Boogie does, and I don't know why that is. But there's an affinity that Americans have, maybe because it's an American brand. I don't know, but there's a whole kind of generation of metal and pop, and they would call it punk. That the dual rec was just an integral part of that. So just like it's really kind of exciting to just see, the amps that were kind of the beginning of this thing. People taking an interest in the way that they are. So I'm going to leave it there. In any case, welcome to the feed. Thank you for your question. I figured it was only a matter of time before somebody asked. So so can neither confirm nor deny. So yeah, the thing is that there was a period of time I was shopping for. Oh, you got a '69 Strat, dude. Ooh, very nice. Yeah. I think it's a micrometer, but I forget. There we go. Hey, Matt, nice to see you again. Yeah, there we go. Would you say micrometer? I don't know. Okay, string changing one at a time or all off the same. Thank you. Great question. All right, so there is a whole. It's an interesting thing because, so I affectionately alluded to dad rock. So there is this, first of all, if you notice, there's a little bit of gray in the hair. And in one of the Boogie demos, somebody, actually Boogie was kind enough to share something on their Instagram, and there was, kind of some sort of dad rock comment that seemed to be kind of directed in my general direction. So I'm a little aware of the fact that, that there is kind of this strange kind of ageism that happens, but it's part of the reality. Now, there's the douchebag side of the ageism where these old farts are just crotchety old little biatches where, they're like, oh, you don't change strings like this. So I had an episode where I was talking about somewhere about changing strings. So I do believe, first of all, changing one string at a time. It allows you to do one really important thing above all reasons. As I change each string, one of the things that I do, and you can tell when I've changed a bunch of strings, is I wear a little notch in my thumb. But basically what I will do is I'll go back and forth along the length of the string with an approximately, let's say, 3 to 4 inches as I tension the string like this between my thumb and my nail on my left hand and kind of the flat part of my first finger here. If you go too fast, you will get kind of a heat burn, but along the length of the string. And then as I come back along, now it's against the nail of this guy. And on the left hand, I have a tendency to maybe run a little bit underneath the nail as I'm coming here, which is probably not a great idea. but I will go back and forth. And then what I will do is I'll gently give the string a tug, putting tension across the string roughly around the 12th or 15th fret, such that you're not tensioning the string at the bridge, which is where they almost always break. And that's making sure any extra that's at the nut there and between the nut and the tuner, that's getting stretched as well. And that kind of allows you to kind of do some sort of thing. I've never kind of come up with a methodology for stretching the string there. And I don't necessarily know how good an idea of doing this may or may not be, but that certainly is something, you know what, maybe giving first of all, I always wind, no. What's up with you? Hang on. No. You have to be in the foreground. Let's try that again. Or did you just, the battery died? Okay. Hang on. What the heck? You. Technology. Are you just not going to work at all? Okay, you're plugged in. The power says it's on. All right. Fine. They have mouses for this thing. The deal is that as you look here, what I was doing, so although it looks generally like it might have been one of my winds. I can't zoom in any tighter, but generally you want to wind down the string down on the peg. And so one of the things I was doing there was I was gently giving the string just a little bit of a I was making sure, first of all, you want to be conscious, especially on an older guitar, the nut can break. So I'm always extra careful around the nut on an instrument like this. But giving it just a gentle pull up like that is a good way to potentially massage it. I'm going to need to talk to Gary Brower about that. Again, because of the nut, and it always is on the edges here that it most often breaks. I've seen it break in other places, but I would be cautious about doing that. I would not be inclined to go down. I would be inclined to go straight up. Again, the idea is to not tension it to the side especially, but that might be a good way to just give it a little bit of a massage there in the way that with the duration, with, you know, kind of the rest of the string there. So this little bit here, though, I will give it a very, very thorough stretch. And then I will kind of give it like this, and I'll use the harmonic at the 12th fret. If you ever notice when the string jumps around on the tuner, it's because it's hearing this harmonic, and it's hearing that harmonic, it's hearing this harmonic if you hit the open string. The other thing is, as much as I love these little TC electronic tuners, they don't do really well with a B string, a low B string, I should say, or on bass. So the harmonic of the 12th and the 5th fret is a great way to get there. And the thing about that 12th fret harmonic, again, if you hit the open string, all these other harmonics are actually ringing at the same time, and the tuner will jump around trying to figure out what you're trying to do. 12th fret harmonic is the easiest way to go. Also, when you change strings, also a good time to hit the harmonic at the 12th fret, and very gently, without pulling the string sharp or pushing it sharp or pulling it flat by going like, if you think about a cello vibrato, the string's being pulled sharp because you're pulling it this way, and being pushed flat, if you will. So you want to be really conscious of not kind of, the natural finger angle comes in like that. So if you think about making contact with the string and then making contact with the fret, the potential to pull the string sharp in the process of fretting out, you want to be really conscious of coming straight down on top of the string like that. Harmonic at the 12th fret, string at the 12th fret. If this note is sharp, it means that the saddle needs to go further back. If it's flat, it means the saddle needs to go further forward. String changes are always a good time to double check your harmonic, the 12th fret versus the note of the 12th fret, and make any intonation adjustments thereof. So the thing is that anytime I'm changing strings, it's either for a show or it's to be in the studio. So the last thing I want is my strings flipping going out of tune. So I made a comment about how thoroughly I stretch, and some grumpy old fart, because young people, they're snarky sometimes. Not always, but sometimes they're snarky. Like, that's dad rack. I'm just like, shut up, you little brat. Versus worse than the snarky young ones is the grumpy old ones. Sorry, you know. And I can occasionally, if I'm not watching myself, I can be that dude. So I'm just like, no, grumpy grandpa. And I'm not a grandpa, nor am I a dad, but I'm old enough. Just saying. Do the math. You know, like that dude is not welcome in any audience. There's a reason grumpy old grandpa got kicked out of every band he was in, because he was a dick. Did I say that? He was a dick. I said it. So the point being is nobody wants a dick around. It doesn't matter how well you flip and play. And that goes for the young whippersnapper too. So figure it out. Get a good attitude. Shut up, sit down, and learn. Thank you. I said it. Wow. Okay. So the deal is we just are there to kind of get in the groove and play together. It's like, people. So the point being is that generally speaking, I will stretch those strings until they're stretched. You will lose some of the life of the string, both at the point of when the string is new and at the point that it starts to wear out. But the deal is that if you're changing strings for gigs and for recording, you're changing them for gigs and recording, which means there's going to be some degree of regularity with which you're changing strings. The next question is, how long do you go before you change the strings? At the point that you can feel some pitting, again, the D string is the string that you generally feel underneath. You want to be conscious of, okay, that string's telling me it's time to go, right? Generally speaking, and I've got a couple guitars I've discovered that on. There's some guitars that need a string change. Probably a good idea to have some sort of Google Doc or Google Sheet that you notate these things and notate, kind of what the life cycle is with the way you play, the regularity you play that instrument, how often it is between string changes, and then you'll begin to kind of go, oh, that guitar is about ready for a string change. And maybe at a certain point you can check strings on such and such a date, potentially to change them. But again, I'll do this across all the strings. The reason I'll do one string at a time is for guitars like this guy that have a floating tremolo, or like your Pia, Spencer, is you want to keep that tremolo sitting generally happy. So I'm going to talk about changing strings on tremolo in just a moment. So I saw a comment that made me laugh. Now I will say I went over to Joe Satriani's house in it would have been the 80s, and he had his whole Floyd Rose completely off the guitar. And I said, oh, kind of like, the stupid question, and I think he had some sort of Q-tip or something. I was really curious because I'm like, I never pull the whole thing off. And he was like, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm cleaning my Floyd Rose. And to him, that was part of the whole deal. It's like the whole thing comes off. He's cleaning all the components, keeping them clean, everything, because the thing is that these pieces, depending on how well they're made, will oxidize, and, in which Joe doesn't. And I don't, thankfully, I don't have the sweaty, grimy, acidic sweat that will burn through anything, especially if you got that. Make sure you give your strings a good clean. But he had pulled the entire Floyd Rose apart to give it a clean. I was like, that's something I would never do, and it's something that I have never done, and it's something that I probably will never do. So generally speaking, you want to change one string at a time to try and keep the equilibrium set between the relationship between the springs and the strings. I realize that's the back plate, but the springs are back there. Take my word for it. The other thing, Thomas Nordegg, it does this thing where he removes the screws here and puts Velcro on there so he can peel that off. Like, I think all of Steve's stage guitars, Steve Vai, that is, of course, have got the Velcro backplate thing, which is a really groovy idea. And it means that you can get at... Backplate? Backplate. You can get at the claw. So basically, on the back here, there is what's basically a claw that usually has 3 little hooks for the springs that they can live on. I think it was 3. Well, now I've done it. Hang on. All right. Let's find one without. There we go. Oh, my bad. Stupid me. It's been a long time. 5. Somebody's down in the chat just like, dude, come on. So let's get over here. There we go. Thank you. So in the back here, you're going to see, first of all, this is the claw right here. You're going to also notice that that's where the ground wire comes through. That makes it so when you touch the strings and whatnot, it keeps the guitar. It basically grounds the guitar and makes it so the hum goes away. So those 2 go into the body. This claw then has these 5 attachments where the springs go. Quite often, I'm surprised that this one is set like this. Quite often you would find that these 2 outer springs are going into these 2 middle guys that will increase the tension. That is, when they're in a straight line, they're not as extended as they are if you run them into the kind of the middle 3 guys there. And then also adjusting the these two screws will then allow you to adjust the height of the way the bridge sits off the body like that. There you go. So let's see if I go like that. You can see that moving like that. So this guitar is set to float, but it's establishing an equilibrium between all of that. You know what? I can show you my new guitar. Hang on. I got a new guitar. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? It's not like that guitar is hard to find. What the hey? Ah! Be back in a sec. I'll be back in a sec. Come here. Come here. So it's an interesting thing, you know, when you get a guitar from somebody else. There we go. So this, I started to talk a little bit about Fender and Gibson scale. Generally, you know, this is a PRS scale instrument. At least it should be. I haven't checked it. It's looking awfully Fender scale. I'll have to check this. But the deal is that Gibson scale is shorter than Fender scale. So generally, on a standard tuning Les Paul, I would be inclined to string it with a 9 through 46 or a 10 through 46, depending on what you're looking for. On a traditional Fender Strat, standard tuning, 9 through 42. Anytime I take a Strat down to E flat, I'll put 10 through 46s on it. That's just where I start, and it seems to work perfectly. So if that's kind of one of the things you've been thinking about doing, do it. It also makes it so the tremolo sits well. When I got this guitar, the action was too low. One of my favorite little shred licks is that little slidey guy. Still a little too low because it. Good sounding guitar. So basically, what I really, and I had to take this back plate off. But what I was really reminded of is like, yeah, you've got to kind of mess with that claw to kind of get the tension. The action was just too low. And so part of what the goal was to get the tremolo so it sat more like that. And in so doing, this is the way it sits. And it actually, you can kind of see the strings get, well, you just imagine that bringing it back like that, strings lowers the strings, and raising it up, as you might imagine like that, actually raises the height of the strings. And you're trying to find that balance of adjusting the strings. Generally, when you're dealing with a 6-set screw bridge, I try not to start messing with those screws and would much rather mess with the height of the bridge as it relates to the screws and get it to lift up a little bit like that, or get it to sit a little bit more like that to adjust the height of the action. But, you know, first of all, you know, look at that finish. I'm like, holy cow. You know, it's a beautiful looking guitar, and I needed a PRS like this in my demo collection. It needs a little bit of probably a truss rod adjustment, and just I need to take it to Gary, and I need to figure out what strings I'm going to put on it. But here's the kind of the whole thing, and I need to double check the scale. Should be PRS scale, which means it's halfway between Fender and Gibson scale, which means I'm probably going to put 9 through 46s on it, but I might put 10 through 46s on it, because a big part of what I'm going to use it for is going to be different rhythm things. So. And I think it will do a little bit better. It's a little small in the top end. A little fret buzz up there. But nice, if you will, diction. That is, say, the separation. There it is. There needs a little bit of some up there. But it's going to be a cool guitar. I'm still kind of getting used to the neck a little bit, obviously, but it's really pretty, and I saw it on Craigslist, and I was like, interested in, and they were like, hey, I'm interested in maybe trading for this. I'm like, get rid of some of the stockpile. But as I get to know this guitar, I think it's going to produce some really neat sound. So I'm excited about this. It's not a super expensive guitar. But in terms of the strings, I've got some decisions to make about this. And I think I'm probably going to go 10 through 46 is where I'm going to probably end up with this one. And I will keep it at standard tuning. So again, standard tuning, not standard tuning, because a bunch of the different guitars here, I do keep at different tunings. There's a guitar, as long as we go in there, having that conversation. This one is 10 through 46. Come here. And I just brought it up out of kind of what Dadgad probably is where I had it, where I just was letting it live as a slide guitar. And unfortunately, it wasn't getting played, so I was like, okay, enough of that. This guitar, sensing a pattern here with these red guitars here. It's playing that lovely Rick Harrison RH Custom last week. But this guy is this has got tenth on it. Needs a little bit of a string wipe. I'm going to change the pickups that are on here. I'm not sure, I'm not going to mention what's in here, but they're not quite right for what this guitar needs to be. I can hear that, especially back to back with the other instrument. But the thing about a heavier string, it's going to make you work a little harder for your take-home pay. but it's going to have a little bit more. That worked. That's where this guitar really has some magic up there. The thing about it is it's I think it's a 2016 or something. What are you? Oh, this is the other thing about these headstock tuners. They leave marks. So just be forewarned about them. What are you? 2016, 2014? What are you? 2013? You should be able to read this stuff. It's probably a 2014, but it's 120th anniversary. But it came from a guy. I can't even speak English. Came from a guy that had it in his collection. It's virtually unplayed. So the interesting thing is that, you know, as an aside, these guitars need to be played. They're instruments that the longer you play them, actually this is the case with all the instruments, the longer you play them, the more they begin to actually resonate with the way you play them. And so there'll be certain places that you play on the neck, like this guitar. I can tell that little spot up there, I don't know if there are any wine drinkers out there, but when you open up a bottle of wine, sometimes it needs a little bit of time to breathe. And can you hear that it's still tight? But there are some notes waiting to be played in there. And it'll loosen up. One of my things I like to do is some slide around the neck a little bit. And sometimes the frets, this guitar is pretty much brand new. You kind of have to, the other thing that will happen with guitars, by the way, I didn't mention this before, is sometimes the frets just need a little bit of cleaning. This, you know, and it happens if a guitar is sitting around. I keep this one down in the studio here. Because and you can already begin to feel the guitar kind of go, oh, okay, oh, you're going to do that. Oh, I like that. Flipping great guitar. And I saw this and I was like, the red thing, and it's just got a beautiful, hold on. Let me show you a thing or two about this guitar. I mean, it's just gorgeous. It's kind of got the classic Les Paul double cut thing. And it's just, you know, what's neat about it is I generally prefer, like on the V here, one of the big things that we did to this guitar was it's got the quad of knobs. One volume and tone for each pickup, hey, and then kind of the middle position. It's not really a middle position on that guitar, but... that sounds great. Ooh. The point being is each one of these instruments, if you get the strings wrong on it, it doesn't do what it's meant to do. And it's, it's a personal thing, of course. But kind of getting that balance right is really, really important, because then the guitar can kind of go, this is where I'm the voice. Each one of these kind of has a main voice that, then as you switch the amp to clean, it still is kind of, well, that's a pretty sound. And there's a particular feeling the guitar has. There's a stiffness that it has when it's unplayed, that you can feel, and the wood just kind of has to kind of loosen up. It's actually one of the neatest things. Very woody. All right. Strings. Yeah. All right. So this is another thing. Great point. So there are different. Before I talked about this on the Strats, that in the old guitars, and at a certain point, I think they started making them a one-piece bridge and block. But the material that the block is out of, there's a whole bunch of talk, brass, and all these other things. There is FU Tone that makes a series of different replacement blocks for Floyd Rose. I think Floyd has a couple of different offerings as well. I am a Floyd Rose endorser, which is kind of really cool. And so the thing about the sound of the hardware is absolutely a huge part of this. Generally speaking, the Yngwie Strat being an exception, virtually none of my guitars have got a brass nut. I always preferred the sound of kind of a more traditional, whatever the heck this is, pseudo bone nut. And so to my ear, it sounds most like a fretted note that you're playing with your finger off the fret. But there are people that enjoy the brightness of a brass nut because it does bring something to the party. And if you think about all the guitars that I've got Floyd Rose on them, they've all got a metal nut. So so much for my theory about not liking it. But on guitars that don't have a kind of lock and fine tuning tremolo, I will most often not opt for anything other than kind of a traditional tusk or bone imitation kind of nut on there, Teflon-y kind of thing. Just so as long as it's cut well, and that is to say that the string doesn't yet, and you can hear it kind of go ding, getting caught up as it crosses across a point where it gets a notch in it. In which case you take it to your guitar tech, because I don't mess with stuff like that. So yes, thrashy stuff. I don't know if I've got that demo. I took some stuff up to the cloud earlier, and I don't know if I've got that as a standalone, but I might. Hang on a second. Renders, are you here? Twin. No, it's not here. And I took the audio up to the cloud, so I don't have that. So, all right. Sorry. Okay. There we go. So, Mark, are you still here? Let me know. Oh my word, am I? I'm way behind in the comments. Holy cow. Okay. Let's see here. Uh, let's see here. Tom, hello. Okay. Let's see here. Let's see here. Huh. Yeah. Shredword. Okay, this is a great conversation. Hang on. I'm going to cherry pick. I'm going to make my way back up to the top. I apologize for jumping out of order. So, Shredword, hi, by the way. That looks like a groovy photo as well. What are my thoughts on 432 hertz versus 440? My band has been playing in 432 for about 10 years now, and I do notice a distinct difference in the single note harmonies, especially. Okay, so great topic. So the and I was thinking about this yesterday. So Eddie tuned down to E quarter flat, and as I recall, E quarter flat was what it is. Feel free to correct me down below in the notes. And I was like, first of all, the things that Eddie did, there were things that he did very intentionally. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was going for and did it. And I think there were other things like the E quarter flat thing where I think he was just kind of had the guitar, picked it up one day and kind of went over a tuner and like, I think it sounds better there. Tune it up to E. We're like, yeah, it sounds better. And I think there were things that he just discovers like, it just sounds better. The challenge is, of course, you go to play with other instruments, it kind of ends up being kind of a different thing. So presuming that is what you're getting at, I think the idea of presuming that your instrument sounds best at E is an awkward presumption. The other thing is that there's some instruments in here, for example, these Epiphones, I tuned them to C sharp. Yeah, I tune these guitars to C sharp. I put kind of their 52s, some sort of 11 through 52 gauge heavy core on there. And the idea is that that instrument has a particular voice that for me was not found with nines, wasn't found with tens. And part of why I bonded with those guitars, like, I'm going to tune them down, and I'm gonna pick this particular. I just arbitrarily went C sharp. There's a song that they're actually used for exclusively on the instrumental album, and I just kind of went there. And this is my point is as follows. Sometimes you don't necessarily know why. It's just that pure gut instinct. I'm doing that. You don't know why. You just kind of go, I'm going to do that. And it's an important instinct to nurture and to grow because it allows you to kind of have that intuition where you don't always have to go, well, here are all the textbook reasons I should or shouldn't do this. There's just kind of like this. And each one of these guitars, the whole point of today is like, hey, you're going to have instruments in your collection. They're speaking to you. And, you know, the idea is that, one, you're going to have an intention with what you want to do with them, which is totally legitimate. For me, I'm always trying to listen. One of the reasons is, you know, a big part of my career has been as a professional for hire demonstrator. I've been blessed to work for a huge range of brands. They paid a lot of bills in my world, and I'm so grateful. And I got a chance to meet a lot of really cool people like what's happening. I'm not employed by Boogie, but the Boogie amps are allowing me to meet a whole new group of people, and I love hanging out with other guitar people. It's just like, you know, what else am I going to do on a Saturday morning? You know, so that experience of sharing our journeys together is important. So the instruments chosen, I was like, you know, I'm spending a lot of time on Craigslist kind of going, look at that. There was a Jim Root Terror, my buddy Jason Farrell from Fender. He was marketing manager at Fender. He was just one of the best people I've ever worked with in the industry. And when I did the video for the Jim Root Terror, I was like, can you send me that guitar? And it was the absolute right instrument for the audience that I needed to serve with that video. So my perspective is always like, as a player, how am I serving my audience? What am I doing? And so the instrument, I'm going to presume most of us, that's how we work. Whether, if you happen to do gear demos, or like most of us, you're like, I write whatever I write, I play whatever I play, and that's my presentation to the world. These instruments say a specific thing, and it's like learning to kind of go, what are you trying to tell me? Spencer, for you, the Pias are speaking to you. Those are a 9 through 42 guitar. I wouldn't take it to E flat. I think, this is per the point of like, okay, where and why pitch wise, right? So hang on a second. I need to, and let me just check something. Hold on. No. And thank you. 432 hertz. Okay. Wow. 432 hertz connection with the universe. 432, it's also known as the miracle tone, is said to be the harmony of the natural vibrations of the universe. Is there any scientific evidence that supports 42 hertz is a new, oh my word, okay. Well, this gets interesting very quickly. 40 equals what pitch? Equals what? Pitch. Okay, this gets deeper. My bad. Verde tuning. Okay. Okay. Thank you. You probably corrected this down in the bottom there. Okay. Hello all. So no. Okay. So, Brian, I adore you. You know that. Okay. Hello, Dr. Phil. Great to see you, my friend. Okay. So, all right. So let's separate the two. Erroneously, he's not asking about E quarter flat. He's talking about what I understand, and I have a limited understanding. So let's start there. Is what I'm going to loosely refer to as tempered tunings. And so there is a range of school that is that if you take a look at kind of the way a lot of Western theory and harmony is set up around the pitches that we've chosen as the various octaves of A or E, but A440, the idea is we've kind of cut a few corners harmonically. Thank you. A concert pitch. So the thing is that we, as guitar players, we tune to A440. So the thing is that there is a slight difference. It's maybe subtle. I'm not going to do the math other than to say 440 and 432. It's different. I did all that to say is that when you start moving across the different registers and playing the different notes together, that when you take, as I understand it, kind of the A440, 880, and you start doing the math around A440 as your kind of your standard pitch of how you're tuning the instrument, there's some places where the numbers and the actual pitches do not go one to one. That's my best understanding. Okay, so thank you, Dan. So there is some range of nuance around this. Thank you. So I'm gonna again. Hold on a second. Okay, so I'm gonna speak about the things that without a huge amount of background. So let me just be really clear. It's a great topic. One of the things about there are guitars that have tempered tunings, and the idea is they're accommodating for the fact that not only when we're choosing A440, but all the relative octaves of that, there are some corners that are cut that aren't actually. They're no longer sound corners. That is to say, as you go up 2 octaves or 3 octaves, they start to drift a little bit. That's my layman's understanding. And that means all the notes in between are not actually perfectly harmonically in tune. That is to say, if each one of those notes, 440, 880, so on and so forth, and then all the notes in between them, there will be some non-harmonic dissonance that happens. Subtle, but it's there. And it's these sorts of things that arguably you may not always be able to hear things, but you can feel them. It was my understanding that with the Eddie Van Halen thing, let me back up a step, that he liked to tune to E quarter flat. Okay, I also did notice that sometimes orchestras tune to A442 a little bit higher for a brighter sound. So, first of all, hi, Dan, and thank you for chiming in. So, again, let me be really clear. I know enough about this to be informationally dangerous and potentially incorrect. So, having said that, so I happen to, well, but here's the thing is they actually don't, because the thing is, when you hear somebody play out of tune, it really flippin' gets you. And I'm gonna bring this into an area of expertise that I can speak to. One of my demo guitars around here is a broadcaster reissue, and it's got 3 saddles, guaranteed to not play in tune up and down the neck, guaranteed. But it has a particular sound where those 2 strings sitting on the same saddle, they vibrate together in kind of a unique way. There's something in the physics, I can't explain it to you, but I can tell you, having separate saddles, the strings resonate differently than when they share a saddle. And you can't make a 6-string 3-saddle instrument play perfectly in tune up and down the neck. But that's part of the magic of it, is the way it plays slightly out of tune at different areas of the neck. So there are times that it actually kind of go, I don't know why, but it sounds good. And there are other times you're going to hear certain things like, oh, that's just killing me. For example, if you were to take triads, and I'm not saying that I'm still into, if you were to take triads, the relationship between different notes and different locations is gonna move differently. And the other thing is, there are, if you will, 1, 2, 3, 4, if you will, intervallic relationships going on there. The 1 and the 3, the 1 and the 5, and the 3 and the 5, and then the 1, 3, and the 5 together. So there's a bunch of harmonic information. I'm going to pull the second string a little sharp. Like puke factor, right? I'm a little out still, tuning wise. But the point being is you play those triad chords and you're literally kind of advancing up the scale, string to string, string by string, step by step, inch by inch. What was that? The Three Stooges, right? The One Stooge. How about that? In any case, the relationship between the strings, generally speaking, 440 and kind of our Western splitting up there works pretty well. But the kind of the tempered tuning, there was a tempered guitar that was floating around the NAMM show, and Vi has one. And it's got this really weird looking frets where it's meant to actually reflect, as best as I can describe it, the actual intended pitches of what they're intended to be, as opposed to the ones that are a little bit off. It's the best way I can describe it. As I understand it, with Eddie, it was E quarter flat, as he just liked the sound of the guitar now, and they're better. And, per your point about 442, I did a Christmas show this past week, and there was a 3-piece horn section, a 4-piece string section, like a 12 or 15 person choir, an acoustic guitar player and a bass player, and I happened to be right next to the strings, and I was just like, it was a moment I'm kind of watching them tune, and they're tuning to the piano. So, and I asked them, would you guys, because I was like, hey, have you ever tried one of these guys? And the woman that was leading the section was like, actually, I have a Diodario orchestra tuner that I love. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. I didn't ask the smart questions because I didn't know to ask them. But they basically, whatever the piano was tuned to, which I'm going to presume, and I will ask the next time I'm out there, A440, my A, so the it's going to be an interesting thing. So the idea is that, in our rock band world, we tune to A440. That's just kind of the way we tune. And the tempered tuning, the next time I see Steve Vai, if I have the opportunity and there's time, I'm like, your take on tempered tuning, because I'm sure he has a whole world of thought around it. Now, here's the reality. is when I pulled out that broadcaster for that demo, I know that guitar doesn't play perfectly up and tune down the in tune up and down the neck. I know that there's going to be certain notes at certain locations that no matter what I do, I can either tune for that register or I can just kind of go, it's close enough that it sounds and feels good. The other thing is, as a player, every so often you land on a note and you can know to pull the string sharp a little bit or pull it flat a little bit, or just let it sit and know you can get away with the inherent harmony underneath. The other thing is as I played that track, I played the chords on that guitar. I double tracked them hard left and hard right. And then the other thing is that in turn I laid a bass track that I just tuned to A440, and then just kind of hoped everything was going to sit well. The other thing is, when things are in different registers, I think that gives you a little bit more leeway about the accuracy, because I knew that the fact that broadcaster, it wasn't always, it was in tune with itself in the different registers, more or less. But the more that I moved up and down the neck, and the chords were kind of jumping around between the bottom and kind of the middle registers of the neck, I was like, in the back of my mind is like, how is this going to work against this? It was a 5-string bass. So that interplay, it actually matters a great deal, as does the intonation of your instrument, because if your intonation's off, and by the way, I double dog dare you, if you own more than one guitar, I will almost guarantee you that if you hit the harmonic at the 12th fret on your second string and you fret that note at the 12th fret, and that's in tune, that is to say the harmonic and the intonation are your intonation is correct, but judging by harmonic and fretted note of the 12th fret, that if you go to play that C at the first fret on your second string, it will be sharp. Because 90+% of the guitars on the market, the nut to play that C at the first fret, it's not compensated and it plays sharp. Which basically means one of the most common chords you will ever play on the guitar is always out of tune. Don't believe me? All right. Okay, here we go. Hang on a second. This is a great conversation. Again, let me be clear. This is not an area of expertise. Tempered tuning is a compromise. Is a compromise we live with so we can play multiple keys on a single instrument. Before that, we had to have instruments calibrated to specific keys hundreds of years ago. Okay, thank you for that. So let me see if... Hold on. Let me do this real quick. Okay, I had it wrong. Thank you. All right, so the deal is, thank you for that, Dan. According to Dan and Google, and not Doug, by the way, being able to say you're wrong when you're wrong, it's a really good quality. In musical tuning, a temperament is a tuning system that slightly compromises the pure intervals of just intonation to meet other requirements. Most modern musical instruments are tuned in the equal temperament. There we go. So, there you have it. Thank you very much, Dan. By the way, how do I know you, Dan? Where'd you come into the fold from? And welcome, and thank you for that. And I love this. Okay. Okay, so let's see here. Let me take a moment and play catch up with all the people I potentially missed here. My apologies. I'm trying not to ignore people. Get off my lawn! Come on! Hello, Viper. Oh yes. No, never nosy. Always ask. So this foot switch is actually the air step, and for whatever reason, it decided to take a little dump on me. But I'm actually using it to control my... Oh, hang on a second. Are you happy with it? What exactly... Oh, I see. Hang on. Let's fire you up again. No, it's just a little... Okay, what it was... It normally works really well. So let me be clear. Is that this morning, it had been... I knew I wanted to switch cameras this morning. So this is the air step light. There's also another air step, so I can actually set them up to control multiple things. It only wants to work on whatever application is in the foreground. But I've got it set up for my ATEM software control. So effectively, and right now it's in charge mode. What was cool about it is before I had it using my one spot, it was actually happy with me. Oh wait. And now that I've turned it back on, all right, let's see if you're going to be happy. ATEM's in the front. There we go. Sorry, I saw the red light and I thought I had I switched it off and on to power cycle and then I left it in the off position. What a moron. Okay, so the deal is this is as long as I got ATEM software control in the foreground, hey, I can choose which camera I'm using. It doesn't like to work when it's whatever application you're trying to control is in the background. And the drama of that is that if you accidentally have it like in Ecamm Live, it can change scenes, which is not the expected outcome. I don't think it was doing it today. And there's a hack that you have to use with ATEM software control, holding down the shift and the control and the option key that I still haven't completely figured out. But natively, it wants to control preview as opposed to program. So you kind of have to hold down a couple of keys and push the foot switches at the same time. In any case, okay. Okay, string stretching, EVH technique, video showing how we use the string stretcher tool. Okay, love that. Love boomer bassists who think that no one should play anything but a jazz or a P, either with flat ones or round ones that are 10 years old. Come on. So, you know, the interesting thing, and again, there's a nuance to this. There is, so somebody had some slightly snarky comment in the comments about ego this or ego that, and I'm always trying to pay attention to, including the snarky comments. But you know what? When I pull out a guitar, I do it for a good reason. So all snarkiness aside, I have these guitars for a reason, and other people can benefit from the information. And if you have a problem with that, I'm sorry. All right, so this guitar is a guitar that's been with me for a long time. I got this in the late 80s, and it's a 57 Les Paul. It has a hairline. Oh, hang on. Let's see. Let's get over to the red application in the background here. There we go. It's got a hairline crack down the back of the neck. I think you can see it right there, but it's kind of like a little... In any case, at the time, they fixed it, and it's got a pair of original stickered PAFs in here. And this guitar, I have with basically round wounds on it. All right, let me get you out of the bridge position. So, per this instrument, and they work really well. So the interesting thing is there's certain instruments from certain eras that really kind of go, hey, you know what? I kind of like that. And some of us, for good, bad, or in between, get stuck in an era. And I think I can see both sides of it, right? So again, I'm kind of speaking to. I think And BC Rich here, there we go. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you're kind of being like, don't just get stuck in one groove, which I completely, unless that is the groove that you just have to live in. I think implicit in your comment, I'm just going to read something into it. So, choking on my own saliva. There, and the interesting thing is they're always. I'm not getting ready to cough into something. I'm figuring out what I'm going to wipe the dust off the side of this guitar with. And I thought about my comment about the paper towel. Here we go. I know, just the cloth. Look at this. How about this? Shameless brand promotion. What do you say we wipe the Les Paul with a Gibson cloth? Wow. Okay. So the thing is that I think some of this stuff, I'm going to use the word affectionately voodoo, right? Some of this is voodoo. It's just like, gotta be round wounds. One of the journeys that I went on with this instrument was I was kind of like, talk to me, right? The clean tone with the round wounds, the G string was a little pokey. But you're kind of like, oh my word, I'm instantly in an era. So they help this guitar tell the story. So the interesting thing is, I've kind of made the decision for the time being. I'm going to kind of keep these. These they're essentially flats. They're not Scout's Honor. They're not Dunlop strings. They're from a super expensive high end string company that somebody out there will know the name. Sonotone, I think is the name of the company. And it was before I started working with Dunlop on the string front. But they're a really interesting way to kind of take this guitar back instantly. In my ear, I'm kind of like, oh man, I've gone back decades. And for people who have an instrument or have a sound in their head that they're going for that's in that particular place, I totally get that. It's actually, Mark, if I were going to be brutally honest, if you're still here, Mark Turvey, who I adore, who has this great classic rock sound. He's played, I think the most memorable time was watching him sit in with Paul Gilbert and just like absolutely hold his own and go on this beautiful classic rock thing on this EVH guitar that he basically just played like a Les Paul. I mean, I was just like, that guy's got a sound. It was just instantaneous. Like, there it is. There's the vibe. And so, you don't want to lose your vibe. And kind of, he's like, I want to go single coil. I'm excited about my favorite players, Blackmore, Hendrix, blah, blah, blah. All these reasons, but you don't necessarily want to lose one of your important grooves. But at the same time, conversely, is if your main groove, like, I only play with flat wounds, I only play, fill in the blank bass. It's an interesting thing. As an interesting aside, I am in the world of gear demos. Part of my gig is to study the bands that were using a particular piece of gear and go, what instruments were they playing? As I'm preparing to do a demo for an amp as important as this, I'm paying attention to instruments, pickups, strings, all of those things, because it's part of my amp storytelling process of how I actually tell the story to people that are about to spend potentially a crap ton of money, a good crap ton of money. Let me be clear. And when I say that affectionately, now I got to backpedal. A lot of money, well spent, but it's still a lot of money. So I want to serve those people as best I possibly can, which means I got to do my research. I got to find out what instruments were used as best I can and get my hands on them to the best of my ability so I can help tell the story for them so they can make a decision on whether it's going to do what they needed to do before they spend their money. So the point being is that living in certain eras and looking at certain instruments, I can't mention the names of the people that I'm studying right now because it would be inappropriate. But it's one of my favorite things to do because you begin to go, I can't mention the name of the band, but specifically the bass player in this band, um, they're a trio, is always playing a jazz or a Pete. And it's very interesting because as I think about the tracks that I'm going to be making for this gear demo, I'm kind of going, okay, what other instruments am I going to be adding to the mix? So, there are times that you're specifically going for that thing. The challenge is it's a timestamp that puts you in an era and stuck. So it's a little bit of both, right? If you just want to live in that era, and that was kind of my point to Mark, and like, I love that you've got this thing that you just completely own, and I would choose to believe that as he goes into the single coil world, he's going to find that same thing with single coils. However, he has something that when he plays, I'm like, oh, that sounds like Mark. I'm sure he's going to find that on the single coil, but I wouldn't want him to lose something that so few people actually kind of get to the point like, people kind of, you could have 100 guitar players playing, I can go, that's Mark. That's a thing, right? So all that to say, it's nuanced, right? Okay, hang on. Let me jump to the opposite as I'm combing through here. Okay, hang on. Thank you, Albert. Dan. All right. Hold on a second. There we go. I know Albert, both Boogie guys. All right, Dan, you're from Boogie World. Hi. So this guitar is really, really, really special. And I traded a '57 Duosonic and $2,500 cash all in. But the guitar, it's got this crack on the back of the thing. It's not the original paint. It's a very interesting guitar. It is actually, I need to double check the seams, but it is the top is a mahogany top. So this guitar came into its life as a gold top. And what's really kind of rare about it, it is not a maple cap. It is solid mahogany. And I need to check, but it may actually just be one or two pieces of mahogany. When last I looked, and because of the burgundy finish, it's hard to see a glue line. I actually can see what may actually be a repair on this lower bout here, where it may have cracked in the back there. But it definitely it had been something bad happened to it. But because it's got the crack and because it's been refinned. But when they found it with the guy that had it, the pickups were literally apparently dangling out. For whatever reason, he obviously pulled them out to see if they were stickered, and then didn't take them, fortunately. But it's just got a particular vibe. But the interesting thing about the strings and the tuning, I just kind of keep this guy at 440 as opposed to 432. Great point. I'm going to need to research that. And again, let me be clear. When I don't know something, I don't know. All right. So, in any case, and Albert, yeah, I love this guitar. All right. Mike, have I done any direct recording from the FM9, and how do I approach recording a stereo signal? So that's a great question. And I'm going to kind of keep poking through the comments here, hopefully not missing people in the process. So, the vast majority of the recording that I do these days is done with these two Badlanders here. And if you listen to the majority of heavy rhythm guitar, it's almost always double tracked left and right. And usually with two different guitars. One of the things that I have found that I have a tendency to do is I will record what I call one pass double tracking. So I'll have the two amps, even if you set the controls exactly the same, which you can't really get it exactly the same. No two amps are going to sound identical. So it's really easy to just kind of get those panned left and right. And what's neat about that is because they do not, it's different than going, hey, I'm going to take one input, I'm going to split that input and pan one left and pan one right. If they're the same thing panned left and right, they're going to sum in the center as a mono signal. But if you have some slight variation between the two, and you pan them left and right, you'll hear this little bit of kind of what I call the envelope of the note as it opens and closes, operating a little bit differently. So the idea is that even with just the two amp set like that, most of the time what I'll then do is I will double track another set, and I will take the left of the first pair and the right of the second pair. but it allows me, as I'm coming up with a part, to have the feeling and the nuance of double track guitar, which is a different thing than when you've just got one guitar panned left or panned right. Now, that said, and I'm going to get to your FM9 question and whatnot, when I actually really am, for example, with this amp, I'm not taking that approach. So when I am double tracking rhythm guitars, one of my favorite new hacks is, I believe that most of us, because we read from left to right, I will start off, as long as I'm kind of being relatively disciplined, as soon as I start double tracking, as opposed to having the one guitar in the center, I'll pan it to the left. I will, by default, create 4 blank audio tracks for double track guitar. And then what I will do is, the first one, I will start with that guitar pan to the left, because it allows you, any of you use in-ear monitors, where you place things across the stereo spectrum allows you to really hear things. So if there's a bunch of stuff happening in the center, panning something to the left means you can really hear it. So whether it's the click that I have a tendency when I'm using IE amps, I'll put that dead center banging loud. Then I'll pan stuff to the left and the right as needed, just kind of so I can hear it over here, over there. But because I have a tendency to think that we focus consciously and less consciously as we go from the far left to the far right, things that I don't want to notice as much in the mix, I have a tendency to pan them over there. That's just the way my brain works. I could be completely wired backwards, just like true temperament. Yeah. All right, so the deal is, then what I will do is I'll record that guitar, I'll unmute it, but that guitar is panned to the right, that first track. So now as soon as I go to double track my second guitar, I'm hearing the guitar still coming in console, panned to the left. But the first track I recorded is panned to the right. And then the second one will actually be panned to the left. So they'll actually, 1 and 2 will be panned opposite of the way you might normally left and right. I say this is your 1 and this is your 2. So normally you'd have a tendency to pan your 1 to the right, to the left, and your 2 to the right. I go to the opposite, and I go track 1. I'm monitoring with it panned to the left, but I've got the channel set even before I go to playback where it's panned to the right. So that way, then I'll unmute that. It plays back on the right-hand side. I'm playing pan to the left, going along with that, and I'm matching that. I'm still listening to the same place that I listened to when I recorded the first part. So there's a continuity that happens in that listening experience that's important. There are nuances to that. One, my room, I'm a little tiny bit further in the side of the room. It sounds a little bit different there than it does over there. There may be subtle differences between your speakers. There may be things happening in, the space above your listening environment, what's on the floor, I should say what's on the surface here that you're getting reflection of. Having all the whatever I'm playing is there, is like it's a constant, me and that speaker, me and that speaker, me and that speaker, playing along with what's coming out of that speaker. But what I'm listening to, that's the equivalent of having your go-to cabinet on stage. Like, that's true north. That allows me to really have a very standardized process, and I'm able to punch that stuff out relatively quickly. And the neat thing about that process is it's pretty efficient, and we want to have the ability to get our rhythm guitars done. So whatever it is we're going to do after that, we're in there and out of there. We want it to be efficient and effective, right? So yes, and yes. So in terms of the FM9, there was a period of time. This is going to be kind of not necessarily. Well, here's the thing: is as a gear demonstrator and as a manufacturer, a person with am fortunate enough to have really great relationships with a number of different manufacturers. But integrity around all of that is super important. So one of the challenges of using modelers, and this is the thing is I want to be clear about this without kicking sand on anybody. As I look around, I can see Axe FX3. I can see FM9, FM3, VP4. I'm a fractal boy, right? But I can also see the Nano Cortex. The Quad Cortex is upstairs. I can see my Helix. If I'm playing at church, I'm only using Helix. That's it. I use one preset. For 3 years, I show up, plug in my Helix, and I'm good to go. Now, the ironic thing is in contrast to that, at one of the Petrucci camps, I watched a collection of the greatest guitar players kind of come up and jam with John or do their sets. And the difference between John's set and House of Boogie and all the various greatest hits modelers coming through the PA, I was just like, it was undeniable, the difference between the boogies filling the room. I'm just like, well, there it is. I will do everything humanly possible to never have to play directly through the PA if I can ever get away with it, unless it's in a church setting, in which case I'm totally fine with it. But the nuance of what John's tone did to fill the room, I was just like, it was so painfully obvious. It was painfully obvious. So I had an experience where I was very excited about using one of the modelers live, and I was going to go open for Neely Brosh in Los Angeles. And it sounded amazing in my studio monitors. I had this great tone. Went out to storage. No, I didn't go to storage. I used a particular methodology, because I don't want to kick sand on anybody, of amplifying that. And it just wasn't translating. And I was like, man. So kind of where I figure out most of my problems, I take myself to the shower. Like, all right, you need a shower, and you need a good think. And I was like, nope. Go into storage, grabbing the JP2C. The JP2C was down here. I'm going to storage. I'm grabbing my 2 Boogie oversized cabinets. And in the period of a half an hour, I put together the XFX3, the JP2C, Cab Clone IR instead of using the Cab Clone DI. Going out of that into the XFX3, splitting that left and right, going out into my Seymour Duncan Power Stage 700 power amp, 350 watts per side, and running that into one or both of my Boogie cabinets. And I had the most severe kick you in the you-know-what's tone. I was like, that. Because I was like, well, I know what worked for John, so flipping A. And I just like, it was just the moment. It's like, okay. And I've been playing Boogie amps ever since. I'm just kind of like, okay. So the things, I love all the modeling gear that's out there. I've heard people get amazing results. However, you're totally dependent on the PA in the room. Not that you're not when you're using an amplifier. However, I know that the conversation I'm having on the back line in my guitar, I know exactly what's going to happen. I know exactly how I'm going to fill the room. I know what those cabinets do when they're behind me. I know how they interact with my guitar, and I know how they interact with the room. We're moving in time towards a place where that's going to potentially change in the next 5 or 10 years. But that's 5 or 10 years from now. Inside the rack here, I've got the XFX3. It's not on right now, but that is an integral part of my live sound. The VP4 is going to be making its way into, without mentioning anything about whatever, it's going to be making its way into a gear demo that's coming soon. And the great thing about that is the effects only part of the XFX, which is basically with John Petrucci, Steve Vai, and Joe Satriani. That's how they use the XFX live. And there's no shame in that, because the fractal effects are just second to none. They're phenomenal. And there are things that you can do with the reverbs, with pre-delay. You can get you can basically make the reverb function like a delay, but not. There's just all sorts of, and the ability to just get and manipulate that stuff is phenomenal. I will also say I'm a big fan of the UA folks. Back there on that board there, once I figured out the flip and power, you're going to see the Astra, what the heck is the Astra? I think it's the modulation pedal. Starlight is the delay, and reverb. Fine. Golden. Thank you. So the deal is that inside the Starlight is the Cooper Time Cube, my favorite delay. That's what you're hearing. And you're also hearing the Lexicon 224 reverb, which both of those algorithms are built into those two boxes. So I created because when I get around to making the Badlander video, the I recreated what I'm able to do inside the box by going direct out of the Badlanders into here, having that in console, by having that in the back line in the loop of those 2 amps. And for those of you that go loopy goosey, I did something that I will have to say is one of the coolest hacks I've ever come up with. Here we go. I've got this, it's over there, but I have the Boogie switch track, which via MIDI will speak with the MIDI matrix back there, which I'm using to control the channel of those 2 boogies. And I was like, wait a second. I bet there's a way, because those boogies have 3 modes. I got 2 amps, but normally the way you use those when you're running them in stereo is usually you come out of the loop of 1 amp, take your stereo effects, and then go back in the loops of the others. But you're only able to use the 1 amp, and those are 2 channels that have channel cloning, kind of like a boogie thing that enables you to, like this amp. These 2 channels are identical. So the ability to get the same, that you can have the same bass thing and then change them ever so slightly intentionally. So the idea is that you've got 2 channels with 3 modes per channel, identical. However, I can't access all 3 modes in 1 amp. And I was like, wait a second. So what I did was I came out of both loops of both amps, and I went into a box that is from the folks at Layla, and I double checked in the manual, because I'm like, I bet I can go, instead of going one, it's called the P-split. It's a passive splitter. Doesn't require any power. Doesn't mess with your tone. You can go basically 1 and then split into 2 different things with isolation. So you can, it may or may have the phase flip on one of them, but it does isolate the ground, so it eliminates ground loops. But I was like, I bet I can flip it the other way around and go out of the 2 sends on the 2 amps, and then run that into a mono input to run into the effects loop, and then in turn the effects loop runs in stereo, and I go back in stereo to the 2 returns. What that enables me to do with my AB box is I can go into the front end of either amp, and with the MIDI control, I can switch channels on both amps. So now I have 2 amps, 4 channels, and 3 modes. So it actually means I have the ability through MIDI to be able to select between 1, 2, 3, 4 active channels as my input. It sums it to mono and still comes out in stereo in the loop, and comes out in stereo out of the 2 cab clone IRs. It's flippin' sick. It's years of tweaking with stuff and just kind of go, I don't know, can I? And kind of going, I don't know, can I? And you go back there and you start messing with stuff. It's kind of what, it's one of my favorite things about the Boogie Forum is, like, some of my favorite people in the world, and they're all super, super cool. We're a bunch of gear tweakers. That's what we do. We just like, I don't know, let's see if it works, right? But I was just like, I must admit I was, here's the thing is like, I try and keep ego out of what I do. There's enough complications about this thing without getting a big head about stuff. The world's a complicated place. But every so often you kind of go, that was a really cool hat trick. And of all the hat tricks that I've ever come up with gear, taking 2 amps, summing it down to mono, splitting it in stereo, and coming back out to 2 loops, so you can do that. You could do that with any pair of Boogie heads and be able to do that same ring. The power amp sections might be different, so you're not going to get the same thing happening on the left and the right, but that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. But what it does enable you to do is to control, have the ability to use the multiple modes on those different amps, but only have one of them as if you will, quote unquote, the dominant preamp voice. And that solves a big problem that I never, thank you. So it's just kind of like, because you're back there, it's like, it's a matter of like, there's got to be a way I can do this. So I'm like, hold on a second. AB box, choose which amp I'm going to, MIDI matrix, choose which channel the amp's on. I want all 3 modes, and I want to have them at my feet so I can get to them when I want to. I was like, oh, heck yeah. And so those amps are just amazing. And they do have cab clone IR, so you're able to get into all the groovy stuff. And the foot switches with the MIDI matrix, you're able to control the stuff that they're not MIDI amps, but they're phenomenal amps, and they're kind of my main go-to amps. So getting back to your FM9 question, I would have been using for that particular, so effectively, as long as you're not going bonkers, the FM3, the FM9, and the AXFX they're you're able to use whatever you want as long as you're not going bonkers on having too many blocks. It's where you want to start adding tons and tons of blocks is when you start needing that additional processing power. And the idea is I've gone and seen Def Leppard a couple of times. I'm friends with the guitar techs for them, guitar and bass tech, I should say. And I got a chance to go up, not this last time, but the time before, got a chance to see Phil's guitar rig. And I'm buddies with John Zacco, his guitar tech. Lovely guy. And as is Phil. So, but they're just running two, hot swappable axe effects, so it's just like, and the tone is phenomenal, and they're totally consistent night to night. The Metallica guys are using axe effects, so at the point that I ever have to do that, then, that's going to be the way that I'm going to do it. I love the neural DSP stuff. I think it's really, really well designed, and there is a boogie suite that's in there. However, the Fractal guys have taken really, really, really good care of me. And I've known them for 15 years. LA Amp Show. This is why if you ever get a chance to go to any of these things, you just kind of go. LA Amp Show. All these amp manufacturers. Pete Thorne's there for Friedman playing up a storm. Great guitar player. Great amps. I'm wandering around. It's where I met all these different amp manufacturers. It was really cool. At the end of the night, I'm sitting at a table with Reinhold Bogner, Dave Friedman, and these guys are just like poker. They're talking about what'd you do on that amp? It was great watching these guys talk shop. I was like, I can't believe I'm seeing this. But way down at the far end, there's this one little room with these guys from Fractal Audio, and I wander in there and I was like, hi. So and I hadn't played through a Fractal yet, and this would have been. I don't know. This would have been in the 2000s, maybe the early 2010s. So it was really early on in the history of things. But I got a chance to meet him and hang out and play through it. And I was like, this is cool, And so that relation, I met Matt, then, and, we've been friends ever since. So there's a strong tie to them. Sorry, I'm too much information. The reality is going direct. And this is where, your choice is, okay, one, if you want to work really quickly and efficiently, what I would do with your FM9 is I would set up, set up 2 amps or 1 amp with 2 different IRs, which is another way to get there. The great thing about using 1 amp with 2 different IRs is the envelope of the different cabinets will open and close differently. So you'll get that separation, but you just lay down the 1 track, or you use 2 different amps and ideally the matching IR for that amplifier, because cabinets are tuned. I learned this from Peter Stapfer from Diesel. Diesel was like, look, when your average amp manufacturer makes an amplifier, the cabinet they make is what they're voicing that amplifier for. Buy the matching cabinet. I was like, got it. And it was a really smart point. So the idea is that, Fractal's got such a great library. But the neat thing is that 1-pass double tracking, you're just able to get in there. And if you feel you really have the overwhelming desire to get in and double track like I talked about, then what you can do is, one, is if you're doing a reamping thing. So I've got a preamp here from Millennium Music and Media Systems that when I'm in reamping mode, I will just grab a raw DI so I can go back to whatever amp, whatever setting, whatever I want to do, and do that. Generally, it's a really good idea to whatever the sound source that you're monitoring with, either through the amp and cabinet or through your DAW, that's the one you go back and reamp to, as well as another one that you had in stereo, because you're going to play a little bit differently with each amp. At least I do. I'm playing to the amp. I'm listening to the nuance of how the amp closes and opens, and I'm playing to that. That's an integral part of the double tracking process. Same thing where if you opt to use a different guitar through the same rig, it will have the same result. On the first record I did, that's what I did. I kind of was using the black Charvel and the sticker Charvel. What was it? Technically a Mighty Mite, but purposely playing through the same rig, double tracked left and right, but switching guitars, which is another great way to get there. My general preference is that I personally prefer using one guitar and switching up the IR or the amp and cabinet there's just a little bit less wash in the disparity of those two signals on the left right, so they just have a tendency to sit a little bit more evenly, such that as your guitar is dancing around that stuff in the center, your melody or your solos, there's just less stuff. It's more consistent on the left and right, and you're able to just kind of blend the three of those things together. It's kind of, if you will, kind of the three corners of an isosceles triangle. I hope I answered that in a non-rambly way, but that would be. And the other thing is, try a couple of different things, right? That there's no harm in that. Number one, just find your favorite amp and your favorite matching IR or different one. Double track it. See how it goes. Number two, same amp, split it with two different IRs. One pass double tracking. Two different amps, matching IRs, one pass double tracking. You see what you like better. And or navigate between the two. And, that is to say, true double tracking and then kind of the one pass double tracking, and see what works best for you, and you may find certain days you do one, certain days you do the other. Kind of how I operate. Again, when I've got one amp to work with, I actually, I'm not spending that much time doing the reamping thing these days, but, I'm about to, go into a couple of weeks spent in album preparation mode. I might, Kuhneberry desperately wants DIs from me so we can go into a larger studio if needed, and reamp the guitars. When the last time I was in the studio with him, John Kuhneberry, by the way, is the engineer. I'm actually producing. He's the engineer that I'm working with. He did Surfing with the Alien and a bunch of the Satriani catalog. He knows guitars. He knows studio. He knows tone. The last time we worked together, I brought a bunch of stuff that I'd run from Cab Clone IR out from the boogies into that. And he said, "Those guitars sound great. I don't need to do anything to them." So I was kind of like, okay. So the idea is there is kind of like when you're doing the reamping, you throw a raw DI as well as the guitar track that you did. Then you run the DI through the reamp box into the amp. Then you recapture that either with mics or not. There's a couple of extra steps, but it allows you to fix things tonally after the fact without going to EQ in post if you don't want to. And there are lots of advantages to that. And the things that you learn as you're fixing things after the fact, not in your DAW, but on your amp, you learn some very important lessons. And as far as I'm concerned, hopefully if there's one takeaway, oh my word, 2 hours and 12 minutes into this. No, oh my word, 3 hours and 12 minutes into this. You people are lunatics. Is that I'm a student. I'm constantly learning per the temperament. There are a world of things that I don't know that arguably I should, but I don't. There's only so many hours in the day. Hold on, the boogie force is strong. Wait a second. Hold on, there we go. Okay, hang on a second. All right, to the 17 people that are still doing this, you're lunatic, and I love you. Okay. Okay, hang on a second. Okay, catching back up. I did the lower tuning for my 2018 CD, but I had difficulty with playing with others having guitars tuned one way and others tuned at 440. My ears just got muddy. This is kind of, the interesting thing about this. It's also what happens when you start tuning to E flat. Like the Strat that I keep tuned to E flat, it's just a pain in the butt. I actually generally have a bass that I leave tuned to E flat just to play with that guitar. But I recently had to tune that bass up to E because of stuff that I was going to do with it. So it's kind of like, it poses, in fact, you can see Pinky right there. And it's this case, same thing with my road worn 60 Strat. The moment I played that guitar, I picked it up and I went down to E flat with tenths. I just instantly knew. And the thing is you just kind of go, eh. And that brought that guitar to life. And again, that's another guitar that I put away because as a demo person, there are times that, you just got to put the guitar away. So yes. Okay, good. Okay. Tony, thanks for that, my friend. Okay, hang on a second. So, there is a huge difference. Hola, Catalino, ¿cómo está? Like that photo, my friend. So everybody's photo's always inside. You're outside. Guitar players made it outside. So I don't know if you're still here. You're probably not. There is a huge difference in price in those guitars, and that was it was an interesting thing. Is like I saw that the Pink PRS on Craigslist, and I knew that I needed it for some demo work that I have coming up. I knew I had to have one of those guitars, but I was like, I don't know, how is that SE going to stand up? Is it going to be something that I'm going to regret buying? And when I kind of got home with it, before I'd adjusted the action, I was like, man, maybe I got this wrong. But once I kind of brought the action up, I was like, oh, this guitar's got a thing, right? So then the funny thing is, as long as we're going to go there, of all my various Craigslist, I'm spending a lot of time looking at Epiphones. It's a funny thing, but the guitars that I'm excited about getting to know are guitars that are in the Epiphone and the Kramer family. But that's just me. What do you know? So it's an interesting thing where, first of all, I as I've gotten older, the damage that I've done to my ears is irreversible. I have tinnitus. I've had it for, I guess, decades at this point. But even more than that is I've noticed this in the past couple of weeks. One of the places that I noticed the hearing loss, and I'm sorry that you came into this world with already some hearing loss. That is you first of all sound great and play great, so you've made the most of it, and I love that about you. And you're playing. So the deal is, I've noticed in rooms with a lot of reverb that's where my ears are like. It's kind of like glasses and focus. The ability to, I hear the sound, but my ability to focus on the nuance of the human voice has gone downhill. However, thank you, Tony. I love that little pink guitar. It's so pretty, but it sounds really, really cool. All right, hey, awesome, happy Fremonting. What pickups does the new G have? So which one, Tom? I've missed the. That's a cool photo, by the way. Another outside photo. Guitar players do go outside. So the I'm gonna change the ones that are in the Gibson. They actually sounded really good. What they are is they are T-tops from Solo Dallas, but it's not quite the right guitar for those pickups. Those are great sounding pickups. I need something. I actually am, because of some of the stuff that I need to do, I'm very tempted to put, although I'm not going to put the 81 and the 85 in there. It's a right guitar. Oh, Adam, I missed you, man. Hello. Great to see you. Squealing pickups. Oh, my. Oh, right. And so Brian had this great video of doing all these crazy squeals. I absolutely love Brian's playing. You are a lunatic, and I love that. There you go. Hang on a second. Doug has gremlins today, messing with his foot switch and hiding guitars. Holy cow. The connection to the rhythm section is super important. There we go. 5 hooks, 5 springs. Thank you, Chris. There we go. Sonia, well, you may have guessed it also. Disassemble Floyd Roses from time to time. Why am I not surprised? I realize I'm going backwards through here. Shredward, thank you again. If you're still here, thank you for bringing that. I need to do a bunch of research on that. When you get kicked out because of a singer, it doesn't matter. When the drummer basses, only cancel, the band dissolves. If the band, there you go. So my special joy is I'm always the band leader, so I get to fire people. There's nothing like the lousy experience of having to tell somebody, you got to go. It's a crappy thing. Oh, you've never seen Grumpy Mead. You should ask Miss Doppler. All right. Okay. Get off my lawn. Okay. We've been here. Good. So interesting. Okay. So, and thank you, Sonia. The voice of reason appears. So all that schlep stuff that ends up on your fingers, and you can see the grunge. I can almost guarantee you that right there is not a pit, but is finger grunge. Yep, you can see it. And that stuff is gross. By the way, if you have friends that don't wash their hands after they use their bathroom, don't play their guitar. That's all I got to say. I'm a hand washer. Just saying. Well, this guitar's got a little something on it. those of you that have talking a little bit earlier about strings and whatnot. This guy's got round wounds on it, which is not something I would normally put. Actually, technically, sorry, they're flat wounds. But I knew I wanted to kind of capture the era from when this guitar was manufactured. And it just seemed to work really well. All right. Let's see. I have not tried a string stretcher before. I need to try that. Okay. And then the comment about Boomer Bass is, knitting out loud. That's great. Come on, I missed you earlier. There we go. Yes, yes, and yes. I'm still lipping with the biscuit. Knitting, I love you dearly. Poor Melissa has been getting bombarded with the biscuit lately. And, you know, she's down with the biscuit, but she's not down like I am with the biscuit. One of my favorite bands ever. You know, I remember being in a theater when Mission Impossible, and I think that rolled at the end credits, and I heard that. Oh, I'm even getting goosebumps. And they went into that. I was like, who is? I mean, literally the first moments of that, you know. That little vibrato thing he does there, right? It's got more delay on there than that, but you're just like, and then all of a sudden the drum groove comes in. I'm like, oh, holy cow. It was just like one of my favorite moments. Almost as I will actually have to say the one that outdid that was, gosh. This is the unfortunate thing about getting older. What the heck is her name? Nope. All right. In any case, focus. Not going there. All right. Hey, KB. Sorry I missed you earlier. Obviously, I'm missing you now, but hello. Okay. I think I've gotten everybody that was here. Modules basically were great basses, but I found the synthetic necks a little bit dead and dead feeling, and they were heavy. BC Rich. First of all, if you're still here, I kind of agreed. The fact, so ironically, kind of our mutual kind of like, yeah, I hear you. Some folks are they get a little fixated on stuff so much that they're like, oh, no, I can't do that. It's not my thing. Which on one hand, I totally understand because there is the stuff that's my thing and there's the stuff that's not my thing. But then there's the other, being so fixated on that you don't actually find the thing that could be your next thing. But then, the modular stuff, I was like, it's a great idea, except for the fact that I don't think I like the way it sounds, right? It just was missing a little bit of life that, ironically, the jazz bass and the P bass, as much as like they're kind of, evergreen standards, they're evergreen standards. So the Epiphone axis, the funny thing is, okay, oh, wait, hang on, there we go, hang on, there are still people here. Gosh darn it. Okay, and I brought this up before. So the interesting thing is, this guitar, it hasn't, for the decades that I've owned it, it's been played. I kind of come back to it. Oh, hey, awesome, Ron, what's going on? Good to see you, my dear friend. Great to see you, rather. But when I do come back and play, and especially after I put the flat wounds on it, I was like, oh man. That didn't quite come out the way I had intended, but it's just a really unique sounding instrument. The fact it doesn't have a maple cap means it's just kind of a different animal. And because of the way the stain was done, I've kind of looked at it a couple of times. Most of the times, whether it's from the side or from the top, you can begin to see the glue lines. But it's really, I guess I could try the black light thing on this, and that would answer that question. But the thing about I actually am increasingly of the belief that it may just be one piece, which makes it kind of a really unique instrument, because of all the things that have kind of happened to it in terms of the crack on the back of the neck and the refin. It's not classically a collectible, other than its age and the fact that it's got the original PAFs. But that's part of kind of why it made its way into my collection to the point that I could actually afford it. But I love this guitar. So the Epiphone Axis. So it's an interesting thing. So I can, since this is not quite as visible socially, the thing about that guitar is it's got a satin neck. I'm just gonna say it. For me, I hate satin finishes. I love an unfinished Charvel neck. I love a finished Les Paul neck. So that's an interesting aside. I also am not a big fan of Gibson necks that do not have binding. And the Kirk Hammett, that's what I call it. It's a 79 Flying V. It's actually a great sounding guitar, and it's got a slightly smaller sound, which makes it a great rhythm guitar for double tracking. It doesn't take up too much space in the track. It's a little bit on the brighter side. Great guitar. But it doesn't have binding on the neck, and I flippin' hate the feel of an unbound neck. It's just kind of like, when I'm playing a Gibson guitar, it's just like I want to feel the binding. I don't want to feel the edge of the fingerboard. It's like fingers on chalkboard. That's a personal thing. The unfortunate thing about the Epiphone, and I think as they've worked on the more recent Axis guitars, I think that the one that I've got is not as good as the one that they're making now. I'm kind of excited to get a burgundy one of those, kind of have it show up around here. Who knows? But the thing about that is, I have a feeling they will have stopped making it with the. I was on the Sweetwater site, and I was not able to tell whether the new one has a satin neck finish or not. It's not on there, at least as to the best of my surveying ability. But there are people who love a satin neck. Knock yourself out. I totally get it. But on a Gibson style instrument, I want to feel the gloss of the neck. It's part of the experience for me because I've played so many Gibsons for so many years. It's just part of a thing. And an Epiphone is a Gibson as far as I'm concerned. Apologize to anybody that I've insulted in so doing. But if you look at the product line, it is really, it's very Gibsonian. So the neck, I just can't quite get over the feel of that because my brain. And it's me, again, just being stuck in a rut on it. But it's just like, I also haven't quite got the action set up quite right. I got it. A pot went out, so I had Gary fix the pot. But electronically, it does a bunch of cool things. Got push-pull functionality. Got the Floyd on there. But there are a couple of things about the action I need to just have adjusted. But the satin finish on the neck, if satin finish isn't your thing, it's not the guitar for you. So I've got to get a proper setup done on it. There's enough nuance to that. Although I'm good at setting up Floyds for my taste, there's enough stuff going on there that I want to have Gary take a look at it and work his magic on it. Yeah. All right, Nandini. Hey, you. Going for the distance. So, first of all, always a pleasure. When you guys are done with this, do me a favor, go ahead and pop in some Limp Bizkit for Nitin and tell him it was my Christmas present for him. Without actually going as far, break stuff's always a great place to start, right? But I just love the Biscuit, and you guys, you're so awesome. Ron, thank you so much. So the funny thing is, most of the time I'm able to associate the name and exactly where I know you from. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. So you're still here. Okay, all right. So now I've done it. I have a Modulus 5-string fretless bass and love it. I just expect the iconic mid-rangey wood tones. Take it as its own animal. So again, how many times am I going to have to learn? It's like somebody out there is going to have something that I'm going to go, well, I just blah blah blah. So here's the thing. Let me clarify my comment because I need to. First of all, I never played, and first of all, that bass made its way. Those were crafted in South of Market, San Francisco, where Stars Guitars was. I presume you of all people will know this. Stars Guitars and the Modulus people shared a place. I know the Grateful Dead folks spent a lot of time kind of hanging out down there. But it was really cool. I still remember the logo up above the door. Kind of is a Bay Area thing. So the thing is that the modulus graphite seemed like a really great idea because the neck would never wear out. It wouldn't get all weird with temperature changes. It's a flippin' genius idea. The thing is that in fact, I think might have played an alembic guitar with a modulus neck because somehow there was some relationship between the alembic people and the modulus as well. Maybe not that, but they had that. This would have been a long time ago, but it had all the alembic bass style electronics in a guitar that I couldn't afford to buy at the time. Interesting. In any case, as a fretless instrument in particular, that would be really cool because the thing is, fretless bass, anytime your instrument starts to have any weirdness in the neck, you get all that weirdness. I love playing fretless bass. I didn't know you played fretless bass. So that's awesome. So, and yes, it is a different creature, but the stability of that. In fact, I don't think I'd ever seen a fretless modulus. So that is a rare bird. Way to go, Sonia. That would be really. And the thing about it is that particular quality especially with a little bit of chorus and maybe a little bit of reverb or delay, that would really be great for the fretless thing. Boom. Way to go. Nandini, will do biscuit it is. I love that. Okay, hey, it's been 3.5 hours. So I'm not teaching for the next couple of weeks. So, but I am going to go spend a little time with the wife. So, oh my word, 15 people here. So first of all, let me say thank you for spending your Saturday with me. In case you doesn't show, I love doing this, and it is always, sometimes you don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I love the fact that we get a chance to not know exactly what's going to happen together. Thank you, and all the new folks that have been showing up. Really a pleasure having you become part of the extended family. Really appreciate everybody greatly. Look forward to seeing you, Albert, my dear friend. This is a lovely way to wrap up 2024. So thank you for sharing your Saturday, the last Saturday of 2024 with me. And thank you for letting me share my last Saturday of 2024 with you. May 2025 bring you health, joy, satisfaction, whatever it is that, it's in your heart to be doing. I hope you get that much closer to it and not further away from it in 2025. May this be a year of prosperity and all the great versions of what prosperity means to people, including those that are like, hey, I got to pay some more bills. Nothing wrong with that. Now, is there? And gosh darn it, here's to more guitars and more gear. And gosh darn it, thank you so much again for sharing your time with me. What a joy. And I'll see you next Saturday. Cheers. Thanks again. Bye for now.